useful if everybody could separately just say some words.
I will go first. It is Tom.
It's time for John now.
Pip here, reporting in.
Those are our RTS barks.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like Overwatch.
Hello and welcome to episode 142 of The Crate and Crowbar. It is the 24th of May, 2016. My name is Chris Thurston, and today I am joined by Philippa War.
Hello.
Tom Francis.
Hello.
And special guest John Roberts.
Hello.
Special guest for the third time.
Yeah, I've just recently become very nervous. I've realised this puts me in direct competition with Rich Stanton.
It's never a position you want to be in.
No. I'm suspicious that in my near future, all doorways in my house will become filled with white smoke. Murdered with a Zweihander.
If you ever see us, if you ever just walk into a room and a health bar slowly fills up the bottom half of your vision, then you know your time has come. And that's it for you.
At least it'll be streamed.
And he will, for some reason, kill you in my name without asking me if that's okay. Today is not a particularly newsy day, or newsy week, really, because as Pip pointed out before we started recording, the industry is keeping all of its secrets very close to its chest in anticipation of E3, when they will all collectively decide to host separate events in order to try and get those secrets out in front of people as much as possible.
That's why E3's hair is so big. It's full of secrets.
What?
It's a Mean Girls reference.
Oh! Sorry, I wasn't calibrated for it.
Sorry.
Recent pop culture reference, Mean Girls.
It's Crate and Crowbar's fault that I've seen Mean Girls.
Really?
You should really all get the reference.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Anyway, the thing that has happened today, what people are talking about on the internet, is Blizzard making Overwatch happen.
They did.
They did.
It's out.
It's out.
It's out at the sort of jarringly high price of 45 quid, which is only jarring because they just did a free beta. And also, like, a lot of people just believe it's free. Like, I've just heard that on podcasts. People saying, oh yeah, it's free, it's free.
No, it isn't.
And it's not. It's just a game you buy for money. And I did buy it for money. I got the pre-order, like, I was looking at it last night because it came out, I think, midnight our time. Is that right? But I wasn't totally sure because I didn't bother to look at the whatever infographic they did to explain it to everyone in the world. So I was going online just to like play it, and then realized, I don't actually own it yet. I need to buy it. And then discovered that it wasn't out yet, which meant that I was technically pre-ordering. And so by like half an hour, I pre-ordered it, and there's a bunch of like extra skins you get for doing that. Yes, in on the ground floor.
Last night's midnight launch was interesting because like almost 10 million people played the open beta, which is fucking nuts. And so everyone was anticipating, the community was ready just to play the game that they've been so excited about for so long and so worked up about for so long. And everyone else, I think, was sort of like rubbing their hands waiting for like Blizzard's latest launch day fuck up. Like, era. What was the Diablo era?
Can't remember.
Was it era 40 or something?
Yeah.
37 maybe? Don't know.
Yeah.
Type disaster or World of Warcraft launch day, cock up. And at first it looked like exactly that had happened. There was about 17 minutes when the game didn't work at all, no one could connect. And the internet was half, like, in that time, like, a bit like the night when the beta invites went out for the first time, and that was all it took to turn the Overwatch community from a really pleasant place to Mad Max, like, instantly. That 10 minutes, the community completely melted down. Like, there was like 2,000 comments on a Reddit thread within 5 minutes. Like, they fucked it, it's over! And meanwhile, Twitter was either angry or laughing or making jokes.
I made my first ever perfectly looping GIF of the failing to load in screen, like timer thing going around.
We all dealt with it in our own way. And then about 17 minutes after, it was fine. Like they obviously got over whatever initial wave of logins they were trying to deal with. Everyone got in and started playing. It was really funny watching that tidal wave of either rage or scorn or jokes or whatever just suddenly just stop. Like, it sort of evaporated the moment the game just worked.
There's something weird about the login process where, like, I would have thought if you're designing this, you want to minimize the number of connections, and particularly like if like before the game is out, you don't want loads of people connecting. But because I was trying to figure out what time it was going to be in my time zone, I thought, well, I'm in Battle.net right now. Why don't I just try and play it and see what it tells me? And it doesn't tell you anything. It just launches the game and then just says cannot connect to game server. and then not only does that do that, but it auto retries every 3 seconds. It's like, is this good for your servers? Everyone who tries to play, you're just going to have them connect every 3 seconds until launch. And that was like 4 hours before it actually came out. But I guess it didn't do any harm.
No, I mean, so credit to them for getting it to work. I guess they did know how much the demand was going to be, so there is that.
I think maybe with all the pre-ordering and stuff, that does actually like help them like to gauge how many people are going to be, or at least a certain proportion are going to be like hammering at it on
it always
that launch moment.
It'd be interesting to talk to someone about what the actual technical challenges are there, because so often a launch that someone knows was going to be huge still falls on its ass. And I suspect in a lot of cases it's not that they didn't predict that number of people connecting, it's just that something broke. It's like, oh, we've got the login servers at high capacity and the bandwidth at high capacity, but then this third thing that everything else secretly depends on isn't at high capacity. Or
I sometimes wonder, particularly for either MMOs or games like Diablo, maybe if they actually have pretty good sense of what it's going to be, and they're going to like, well, we're going to get, I don't know, 4 million people at midnight trying to get in, and we can't handle that. But after that, there is no way we're ever going to have that many concurrents ever again. And it's going to settle at around 200,000. So we'll take the PR hit and just buy enough network infrastructure and whatever resources we need for the amount we expect on average. And just understand that it's going to fall over while people are excited about it.
But don't some people, like hire out extra sort of server?
Yeah, I mean, that's how
stuff.
Amazon stuff is supposed to work. It's distributed.
Scales,
server thing. My guess is that once it's on the scale of like 4 million people at once, that solution is not like scalable or something. Like the switching process probably gets overwhelmed or something.
Also, I'm guessing that like when you're using a proprietary login system with people's like information, personal details and stuff, like there's probably like this whole other layer of what's secure and what isn't, and what deals do you have in place with regard to like data recording and privacy and things.
Like at Christmas when people who logged into Steam would sometimes get logged into someone else's account.
Yeah, or they'd see the other person's account. Like I think that they couldn't do anything.
Yeah,
it was like
I think
a visibility thing.
Like they could see their name or something, and that was
yeah.
It's like sometimes you go onto like just the Steam website and you get someone else's checkout page because it was surfing the wrong pages to the wrong people. Like you couldn't take anything any further or access any private information. It just looked incredibly bad.
Yeah.
I can only assume that the Blizzard sysadmin was just feeding off the fear and suffering and loathing. And, you know, once he transcended into his final form, someone else was free to come and flick the switch.
Yeah, exactly.
Just based on the one that I know, that's all.
But yeah, no, it went quite well. I think it feels technically like a really rock solid game of Overwatch. Like I think they've done a lot of work on like invisible anti-cheat and latency stuff. So the sort of things.
Yeah, today was my first time playing it ever, and I really liked it.
Hooray!
Why didn't anyone tell me it was good? I wasn't really expecting to. I sort of thought it would be like a good game, but I thought I might kind of already be over it because I played TF2 so much. And in particular, like, because I heard so much from Valve about like TF2's readability challenges and how they solved that with all these silhouette stuff. Like, I think I drunk that Kool-Aid pretty wholeheartedly and just assumed that is a really, really big problem and needs to be solved. And then Valve themselves kind of just strayed wildly from that by changing everyone's silhouettes radically depending on what hat they bought and all this stuff. They didn't really seem to break the game. And Overwatch has like, 25 characters or something? 21 characters, all of whom have different colours and can also change their skin to be different colours again, and don't even have the TF2 thing of like being themed per the team they're on. And all they do is they just draw a red outline around the ones that are enemies. Like, oh, that solves it.
Yeah.
Something that's really interesting was I went to one of the talks at GDC about the sound engineering on Overwatch, and they've made it so that the footsteps for each character sound different and that you can actually tell them
Yeah.
apart just by like how they walk in the
And there's
game.
a really good. Do you see Chris Pratt's video on this?
No, I didn't.
I'll put it in the show notes. But he talked to Blizzard about it, and they set him up with a video of like a bit of gameplay, and did 2 versions of it. One where the sound is just sort of realistic, basically you hear sounds based on proximity, and then the other one which is how the game actually sounds in practice, where they ramp up the volume of enemy footsteps because it matters whether those people are more than your friend's footsteps. And I think like the person who's the biggest threat to you will have louder footsteps and things like that.
They also, it's not like proximity in terms of absolute radius from you. It's to do with their pathing to you. So if someone's on the floor
Oh my
above,
God.
they won't sound like they're only a meter away. They'll sound like they're, you know, the distance of out the door, up the
Right.
stairs and around the
That's
thing.
interesting.
Like, if you have access to the GDC vault, that is part of the talk that they gave this year. Like that, side-by-side comparisons in there as well, I think.
There's a really good, like virtual 3D sound thing you can enable in the settings in Overwatch that, it asks you to disable any like 5.1 or 7.1 you might have in your headphones. It just requires stereo headphones. And it sounds really strange at first. It sounds a lot quieter and like something's missing. But when you get used to it, the positional sound is amazing. Like it's really, like on top of what they've done generally with the way the sound balance in that game works. Like it's like the example I would give is earlier, I was playing as Genji, who's the cyborg ninja that can deflect projectiles back at people. And he's a very good counter to Bastion, who's the turret robot that everyone hates. And I could hear like Bastion's like turret mode firing sound is very, very, very notable. It's like this low, very rapid thud. And I could hear it well enough to deflect it as I came around the corner. Like knowing exactly where he was, like in like 360 degrees, like, and obviously knowing the map, but it was still that really cool feeling of like, he's to the left and up a bit and then going around just immediately just reflecting this minigun hail back into him and killing him. It was pretty rad.
The thing I hadn't really thought about, like I thought about, I imagine it being kind of just messier than TF2 because TF2 has 9 classes, this has 21, and the 9 classes in TF2 have very kind of clear relationships to each other. But the thing I kind of forgot about what it was like to play TF2 the first time it came out was, just this feeling of like discovering 9 different games. I just had 9 different games to play. They're all, like, each class is just a radically different game and everything, all the rules change when you play as that class. And now with Overwatch, you have 21 games to play. Yeah. And it's amazing. I've played like 7 of them today. And so even after all that and, getting quite familiar with those, there's still like 14 classes that I never played, that don't know anything about like how they work.
Who did you play?
Did
I
you have
played-
a favourite by the time you were done?
Yes, D.Va.
Yeah, she's
D.Va's
the best.
amazing.
You're on Team Chris then.
Yeah.
D.Va is like, so I played a lot in the training map where it's just like, not AI controlled characters, but literal bots, like robots, just standing there to just kind of test things, damage and stuff like that. That's weird. I wonder if that gives you a skewed impression of some things, because it seems like some classes are just useless when you test them on that map and others aren't. Or maybe just like my expectations of what they do are different. Like, is it Zarya?
Zarya.
Who looks like the Heavy from TF2 basically, and has this kind of awesome looking beam weapon. And like when I tried that on the bots, it just took ages to kill even one of them. And then it says she gets like more damage when her shields absorb stuff. And then I was casting my shields and things and they just disappear after like a second. And even after you doing that a bunch of times, I still didn't get much damage with her. Whereas other, like D.Va just seems fucking incredible. Like she has like twin rapid fire shotguns with infinite ammo that never need to reload. She's a tank, she's incredibly tough. She's incredibly fast because she's got like rocket thrusters that she can not only like close the distance to the enemy really quickly, but also just fly over stuff. If she does get killed, she just ejects and then can run away, and then she's super mobile and also has quite a good weapon even in her like out of mech mode. And then she can summon a new mech and get back in it and just start over again. So like the first game I played, admittedly, they do like tutorial, then training arena to test out different classes, and then they suggest you play like a game against bots, but with other players, which is really cool. And the bots are super easy, but, in my first like 3 games of D.Va, I just didn't die ever. My mech got blown up a bunch of times, but I just always got away and managed to summon a new one. And yeah, she's just awesome. The other one, I like Hanzo because I like the Huntsman in TF2. And, Hanzo's like just
You're 2 for 2 with Chris classes.
really.
Shows what your third one is, then we'll see if we get the triumvirate.
Or how you feel about Soldier 76.
Well, you have to play as him in the tutorial, and so I was kind of done with him by the end of that. And also just assault rifle. I found assault rifles incredibly dull.
That's the correct opinion.
I've been trying to like find a support class I like, because I played Mercy for a bit and just didn't really have any fun for all the same reasons I don't really like Medic in TF2. And I like a bunch of choices they made with her, with the fact that she can like fly to an ally, so that if you're healing someone who's really mobile, you can kind of match their mobility. But I still just ended up spending a lot of time like looking at other people having more fun than me, whilst making them have more fun. And I think I haven't really tested him in practice yet, but I kind of like the way that Lucio works. The music guy, he like passively heals everyone around him, or he can passively make them faster. And then he's got a weird like sound globule gun.
Sound globs.
And then
Shoots the sound globs.
his ultimate, I was testing on like bots and stuff and seeing how what healing rates were like and various, because the one sort of like thing that makes it tricky to learn what the classes are is that they're not as clear cut as TF2. TF2 just has one medic, and that's the only person who can ever heal anything, and he's brilliant at it, and that's it. Whereas Overwatch has about 5 different classes that have some kind of like either healing or shielding on other players. So I was like, when I see a character has a shielding ability or a healing ability, I don't know, are they actually like a healer, or is that just a sort of nice extra thing they can do in addition to being quite good in combat? And Lucio's like like his ultimate area effect heal thing seems to be super effective. So he seems cool. There's one other I liked, but I can't remember who. I didn't like Reinhardt. I didn't really like the gorilla.
Winston.
Unfortunately, we must now fight with hammers.
Those are your 2 favourites.
Reinhardt is the best character.
He's great.
Yeah.
He's great.
I because he has a vast hammer, I was expecting to deal a lot of damage, and then I found he didn't deal a lot of damage. And
You have to hit them directly with the hammer. There's a certain finesse to hitting people with a 12-foot hammer that you wouldn't expect necessarily.
also, and this is like a weird thing, but I never actually played a proper game with him, just in the test labs. Didn't sort of like the amount of damage he did. And then whilst fighting against him, I've just been really good against him, like as D.Va and stuff. Like he puts up his big shield, and I think particularly because it's like it's all noobs all the time, right?
Yeah,
It's just a crazy free for all. No one knows what they're doing, and I'll be like 1-on-1 with Reinhardt, and he'll bring up his shield and stomp towards me, and I'm like, okay, I'll just shoot through your shield until it's broken, and then I kill you.
Yeah, D.Va's quite good at that very specific thing.
And also, when out of the mech, I had a really cool moment where I'd, blown up my mech, and then I was just needed to sort of wait for my charge meter to fill up before I could summon a new one, and also maybe get some damage in to speed it up. And so I was kind of flanking the enemy, and they were like defending this control point, and they were kind of pushing out from it, and Reinhardt was leading the charge with his huge shield, and he was kind of ahead of the others, and I'd come around to the side of him so I could just shoot him past his shield. And I kind of knew what would happen when I did, which is I shot him, he realized what was happening, turned around and faced his shield to me, at which point our team just shredded their whole thing because he was doing totally the wrong thing.
I tweeted the gif of this, but at a good moment against a full health Reinhardt on my favourite map, I think, which is Ilios, which is like the Greek island one, as a mechless D.Va, like running around trying to capture the point, and the point is sort of in this little house that's next to a sheer cliff on either side. And so I found this worked a lot in beta, is the way to kill a full health Reinhardt if you can't shoot him and he's behind his shield is annoy him enough to get him to charge you. And so I'm just jumping up and down as a D.Va, just shooting into his shield. And then you see him do like the crouch before he does his rocket charge. And then I just sort of got out the way, and you see him go out of the building, straight off the cliff, and just keep sailing off into the distance. And then the only appropriate thing to do is the wave emote as they kind of like sail off into the distance. It's really bad manners, but it's really funny. And also because they have to watch that on the kill cam. Yeah, that was good.
I love watching kill cams where I just threw myself into the abyss. Yeah. And he'll just like pick someone who's back at spawn or something. So that guy really owned you there.
The very first time I played Overwatch, when me and Pip were in Prague, I think for a Heroes of the Storm,
Road to BlizzCon
esports thing. The very first thing I did on Volskaya, which is like the Russian map with the ice river outside the attacker spawn, I played as Winston, the big monkey, ran outside. There was like a Reaper running around shooting people, so I decided I was going to leap on him, and I just leapt in the water. And so the first thing that I just like fully just like face planted into the sea, and got to my first kill cam was like watching myself run outside and jump in the sea. Like, yeah, I understand what killed me there. Like, thanks for playing that one back to me.
Widowmaker's the other one I like. Because she has a grappling hook. Grappling hooks are fucking great. And she's just a sort of sniper class, much like the original TF2 sniper. But there's, like, grappling hooks are amazing. It can just get you, like, places. There are loads of places I just assume are out of bounds because I'm TF2 trained, and TF2 has no, like, it has rocket jumping and sticky jumping, but it's not designed for characters that can fly or anything. And, obviously, Overwatch has, like, multiple characters that can just get wherever they want to get, basically. And, so it's just great being able to see, like, oh, I'm just going on the roof of that building and snipe from up there. And I'm not a good sniper. I kind of like the style of sort of, finding some secluded spot and, coming at them from like an unexpected angle. But mostly I just like using grappling hook. I really love that I've only played like a few matches and I haven't had like play of the game yet. But I was really pleased to see that like on the menu, there's just a highlights section and you can go to that and it'll just be your best bit from every game that you've played. And you can just go back in and watch it like a demo. That's awesome.
Is it just that session at the moment?
It's just that it's when you close the client, it forgets your last run of.
Can you save them?
I have shadow play on, so I just if something particularly good happens, I shadow play it because also sometimes you'll do something in the course of a game that the highlight reel won't recognize, like baiting Reinhardt to jump off a cliff, which it just won't figure out a lot of the time. And so it's always it makes for good little highlight plays as well. The mobility thing is something that I think has stuck out to me more and more as I get more experience with the game as well. Like I keep getting impressed by like presumably what are deliberate decisions in terms of how far characters can move and how they can get. Like a really good example of this is King's Row, which is the London map. I don't know if you played.
No.
Ends with you pushing a cart down sort of into a refinery basically. And it's like a road with like industrial stuff either side of it and then like a huge sheer drop either side of the road into a refinery pit. And the final capture point where that you need to get the payload to is like a big circular platform in the middle of this refinery. And characters that can fly, it's actually just Pharah and D.Va, both can fly for long enough that if they jump off the road, they can actually like go underneath the buildings and fly back out on top of the capture point. And that it's just on a threshold for both of them. Like it's just the extreme limit of D.Va's rocket fuel, basically, to the extent that it's worth like letting yourself fall for a while before you jet back up. And the same is true for Pharah as well. And that to me, like, I don't think it's people finding like hacks in the map because it allows you to get like underneath and behind the defenders. I think that's deliberate. Like, I think they know exactly what kind of a gap they can put in that will then be traversable by these characters and make them interesting picks in that match.
It'll be interesting to see how things change as people learn routes and so on. Because even stuff like Lucio can wall run, and it was very rare to actually see him doing that.
Yeah, I couldn't
combat.
find any use for it.
But I assume when people get used to it, they'll start learning routes that he can take throughout the levels and so on.
There's a really great highlights video that someone posted of themselves on Reddit, just getting all of these kills through wall running and sort of picking off snipers just by like, sort of basically skating up to the window that they're sniping from and then just being like, hello!
It's good against Reinhardt as well, actually, because you can, if you're trying to block a passage, you can skate over him, basically, and then get behind him. or like do the jump to wall above him, and he can't really get you. It's also, like, Lucio's one of the very few characters that can't fly, that can save themselves from falling down a big hole. Like, they've experimented a lot more with, like, environmental hazards and verticality with the later maps, or the maps that arrive later in the beta, like Ilios, Nepal, Lijiang Tower, are all maps that weren't there for a long time, and they've all got like massive pits and hazards and stuff. Like there's a big circular pit on one of the capture points in Ilios that is amazing for Lucio, because if you're in trouble and the enemy's capturing the point, you can just jump in the hole and then skate in a circle inside the hole until your team shows up again, and then just emerge from the hole with your ult. Obviously, if they notice you're down there, you're fucked, but like, because you're just, wall running above an endless abyss, but there's shit that you can do like that I think that's where, obviously it's a super accessible game, but I think that's where the headroom arrives in terms of skill ceiling, which is a mixed metaphor. Or is it? Maybe it's just a metaphor.
In terms of character design, I think pretty much all of them have their own good roles and so on. The one that really annoys me is Soldier 76. And I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but I remember Valve talking about when they were making TF2, they did everything they possibly could to avoid someone who was good at mid-range, who just had a machine gun, who was excellent at mid-range. And yeah, there's no one like that in TF2. The closest thing is like the sniper's hit scan SMG, and that's really weak and so on. But Soldier 76 is great at mid-range. He's got hit scan, assault rifle. You can just hold down fire and the cone of fire is still fairly controllable and so on. Do you think that's a failing? He just seems blandly useful in pretty much every situation.
Go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, I perversely like him in that I think he's a simple character when... Because I was wondering whether people who weren't used to MOBAs, for example, or like maybe if it was like, oh, it looks fun, but now I'm completely lost because this character does like 4 different things and I'm not sure where to start. Like I thought maybe he would be a good kind of basic, intermediate at most things option because he has a heal and he has an actual sprint that maps to the button that sprint usually is rather than, oh shit, I've accidentally shielded myself, I think, maybe, what is, you know? I'm going fast now. Was I supposed to be going fast? I thought I was healing. I
think I'm tilted because I just hate his character design. Just
I find him weirdly annoying. I don't really know why.
I think bland is a fair description. He is just sort of the shootman.
There's something a little bit unusual about him. He's wearing kind of like a biker jacket, and then he has white hair, which is kind of unusual.
He's
and
old.
Like a Cyclops visor.
He's like 50 if you believe the lore that says that he's the founder guy from Overwatch.
He's the founder of Overwatch, and now he's old and retired and bitter like Batman.
Are all these
His name
skins
is
I got
Jack.
for pre-ordering it, are they like just younger versions of the characters?
They're all previous versions of characters. That's why
it's called the Origin Edition.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I bought Overwatch Origins. What a chump.
So from a mechanical point of view, like I often complain about Soldier 76. Like I actually do play him. Like I think he has a role within the game. He's my least favorite character to be killed by because he's quite good at a lot of things, but he's not amazing at anything. And so getting killed by him is often like having you've fallen for like Captain Average has arrived. Like there's no greater confirmation that you're playing averagely than getting killed by Soldier 76 because that's where he's great. He's great at the middle. Yeah. He's good at middle of everything. But within the game itself, I understand why he's there because, so within the bracket of offense characters in Overwatch, only 2 aren't flankers. So like Pharah is a vertical flanker. Tracer has her own way of moving. Reaper is a really good example. And Genji are really good examples of characters that are designed to go around the side and hit an entrenched position from the side. And like to the extent that when they were first designing the game, I was talking to someone from Blizzard who said that all of the maps, when they would map out like this is the main path, these are the bottlenecks, and these are the Reaper routes. And it's because Reaper was the first offense character I think they properly designed for it, and it was, you know, these are the ways he goes. Soldier 76 and McCree are the exception because they're the 2 that are frontline offense characters that are designed to move as part of as a kind of like to add damage to an offensive that has a tank and a few other things in it. And having them in the game enables strategies beyond distract them with the tanks, hit them from the side, which is like one really important Overwatch tactic. But it's that having them in the game allows it to not be the only one that can work. And given the game is so much about switching character, it allows you to at its core, what I think that game is about is defenders building what they think is the best possible defense. And then the attackers, if they're playing well, iterating on approaches until they find the one that cracks it. And often when the game is frustrating, it's because it's just 2 teams throwing the same thing at each other over and over again until the one that has the better composition wins. And that's why it needs probably a little bit more space than TF2 needs, because it's ultimately a bit more about maybe iterating on the same attack over and over again. Like Tracer is the best example of that because she's the one that literally rewinds time and tries the same attack again. But that's I think why they're in the game. I think McCree is my problem character in the game at the moment because he's McCree and Widowmaker because they're both very high skill ceiling characters with very high lethality, hit scan, powerful single shot weapons, which means they scale incredibly well with mouse skill in a way that other characters don't. Like if you're not great with a mouse, you can play Winston very effectively, you can play D.Va very effectively, you can play most of the characters in the game very, very effectively, and everyone there'll be a big differences. Skill makes a big difference, but it's not like one person's just got an AWP from Counter-Strike and are as good as they can be with that gun. McCree's kind of like that. And that's why I sort of worry that as people get better and better and better, Like, the average pro team has, like, 2 McCrees, regardless of what they're doing at any given time, and it's because he's just better than most characters when you're that good with a mouse. But yeah, like, I think it's good that Soldier 76 is there, because it enables a different philosophy of attacking, where you can suddenly have, like, a steady frontline damage. Like, actually, Diva's a really interesting example, because she's a terrible frontline tank. Like, she's like, far and away the worst character to pair with Soldier 76, because she's a flanking tank, which, like, that's why I think the game becomes really cool, is when they can start remixing roles within the thing. So, like, most of the tanks are good at sustaining a forward push. Diva's fucking awful at it, unless there's 2 Divas, because she doesn't have she can't take damage at all. She just falls over. Like, and so I think that's where I've rambled about this, but that I think is where the interest of the game comes from. They're each ingredients as well as parts of a kind of rock, paper, scissors puzzle.
This is a weird question, and possibly not the best one for super competitive Chris. But do you think it puts too much emphasis on winning and good team composition to the detriment of just having fun? Because it's one of the fastest games I've gone from booting up and saying, hey, this is fun chaos, this is brilliant, to saying, oh, we kind of need a tank or a healer, to then going on to, this is fucking awful, why aren't the rest of you doing your jobs? This is the worst game ever.
I think that's a really good point, and something the game struggles to reconcile. Like, I mean, I think it is really fun. I think it's fun when you're playing it normally, and I think the hero brawls, like the weekly remixed modes where they throw weird combinations in, is a good example. That, I mean, Pip, when you and I were playing through them in the beta, they used to change every day just to cycle through different modes.
So does that tell you what class to play on?
So
there's a theme thing. So there's like a Super Shimada Brothers was one of it, and it's basically you can only play as Hanzo and Genji.
and only headshots work.
And yeah, and there's another one which is like that references the Soldier 76, we're all soldiers now thing, where everyone is just Soldier 76. That would be hell for most people here, I think. And there's I think they did like an all girls one, and like there's just there's
like a mayhem one where ults recharge really fast
as well, I think, which was
all defense was so boring. No, all support was the most boring.
Who could have foreseen this?
One really interesting one, but the good thing about those modes when they work is they're really fun for one thing, but they each allow you to, like, I think when it's operating well, you're doing a big silly thing and it's really fun, but you're also learning something that makes you more competitive and helps you feel like you got some sort of like understanding out of it beyond like a knockabout. And a good example, like the Super Shimada Brothers one. Was interesting because I never realized how small Genji's head is. Like, I played a lot of Hanzo, and it's like in that mode where you can only, like, it would turn out to be all Hanzo's defending as all Genji's attacking, and everyone would be on the point, and so it would do that thing where it was in that game, I think it was an overtime, which is when both teams were on the point, but the timer was run out for 9 minutes, because no one could kill anyone else, because the Genjis can't kill the Hanzos, and the Hanzos have to headshot the Genjis to kill them, and Genji has a really small head, and he's sort of like flipping all over the place and climbing walls and dancing around, occasionally reflecting arrows. And when you land one, it feels like the best feeling in the world with the bow. But it, you know, it's just like, but it felt like a relentless Hanzo drill. Like, it's just the perfect Hanzo practice for an hour. The other really interesting one was all Pharah and Mercy.
That was what really got me excited to play Mercy, because it reduced the cooldowns on the abilities so much that Pharah was basically able to fly the entire time. But because of Mercy's thing where she tethers and zips to where her ally is, Mercy could fly as well.
Awesome.
So it was basically this whole weird aerial assault where you were just sort of...
It's like a flock of seagulls trying to kill each other.
But it was so hard to try and take the point because no one was landing on it. Like, everyone was just hovering above it, and if you landed, you died.
Yeah, because if you land... Because characters on the ground are who Pharah is comfortable killing with her rocket launcher. So the moment anyone like touched the ground, the entire enemy team's Pharahs would just like fire like a barrage of rockets down and kill her. But as you're flying around, like it's hard like for Pharahs to hit each other in the air. Like, it does happen, but you know, it's good practice for that. But the other thing it made, I think, me realize, and a lot of people realize, is Mercy's gun is amazing. Like, Mercy's pistol, like, one of the secret tricks to Overwatch is all of the pistols are amazing. Diva's pistol is amazing. Mercy's pistol is amazing. Chorbon's, like, Switch 2 gun is really good. Mei's alt fire pistol is fucking great. Like, if a character has a small gun, it's probably more powerful than the big guns. And so, like, everyone thought Mercy was just about, like, holding the button to fire your damage or healing hose at a friend. Whereas actually her gun is fucking great. And in that mode, it was amazing because you'd fly towards somebody switch to your pistol and then just take a Farah out because you've got a hit scan gun, which is way better than a rocket launcher in a huge aerial duel. So I think you can have both. I think you can have the big silly knockabout mode that also makes you more competitive. But I do agree that it's the how little time it takes to get to what the fuck is wrong with you people? Why are you all Roadhog? Is it's not very long.
I think it's interesting because the game kind of does it itself, and I don't know whether that's a good or a bad thing. Like at the start where it's like, no defense heroes or no this or no that. And it's kind of like, it then sort of puts the impetus on the person who hasn't picked to take that. And it's like, and there is always that tension in a multiplayer game if somebody has to choose to like go with what they want to play rather than what the team needs at that point. And it's sort of like, and just because somebody else clicked faster, it's like, oh, well, I'm immune. I got, like first here. So I think that can be a bit of a problem. The other thing you were saying about teamwork is interesting because I was not salty last night.
You were salty. You pushed me in real life.
But it was because I'd done like a really cool setup for
with Zarya's ult.
Which basically pulls everybody into this gravitron pulse thing. I caught 5 people in it, and then Chris unloads Farah's ult onto it, gets a quintuple kill, and the play of the game. And I'm like, are you actually kidding me?
And this was our first game of launch Overwatch as well.
And I worked for that. Like, I was properly paying attention to where they were going to be and, like, timed my ult perfectly to catch as many of them as possible. And then the game's like, well done, Chris. Well done.
And the thing as well, because the kill feed showed me as well, lots of the team were like, what the hell just happened? Where have they all gone? Why is Chris so good at this?
And I'm just sat there like, oh, story of my life.
That seems like an easy one to detect. Like for them to, anytime a bunch of people are all sucked into a black hole get killed together, that's kind of Zarya's.
I think what it needs.
But I wanted them to maybe do a thing where 2 people could get play of the game if they'd worked together. It could actually reward teamwork.
Because actually,
highlight
one of the
both
things.
of you.
One of the things I really like about it over TF2 is that, as far as I can tell, it doesn't distinguish between kills and assists while you're playing. It just says elimination. Yeah. And so it keeps telling me, like my first game, I got 40 consecutive kills. And I'm like, did I really? Because like every time we had a fight, it was humans versus AI. And like every time an AI got into us, I'd be firing at it and, I'd be doing my part and it would just always get the kill. And so, because I didn't understand the system, I'm like, did I kill every single person? My score is going to be insane. You guys are going to be really annoyed at me because I'm getting the credit for everything. And then I found out, no, everyone gets the credit for everything. It's great.
I think it tracks the information differently on the back end for certain things, but what I
noticed there's like a solo kills category on the end screen.
Like a participatory thing, which is cool. With regard to the Zarya thing, somebody tweeted me a picture of, at the end of Monsters Inc. where they're showing Mike and Sully walking towards the camera and the Monsters Inc. logo comes up and obscures Mike entirely. They were like, yep, that's you. Damn it.
I totally agree that 2-person play of the games would be amazing. Because all it needs to do is to show the play of the game intros for both characters. It needs to be like, Zarya and Farah did this. Yeah. And then that'd be super cool. And then maybe show a mix of perspectives. So show the black hole coming out from Zarya and then show the Farah out from Farah's perspective just because the rockets look cooler from Farah's perspective.
I feel that animators could have fun with the introduction animations for that. Yeah. So some sort of pairing for each character
like
in the game.
Kind of.
Like fist bump and then stand back to back.
That'd be great.
Or even just show both characters like montage style. Like, because one of the cool things is unlocking your own play of the game intros. Like, I really miss my old Farah one where she does like the full like anime rocket barrage thing because that's fucking rad. But I once got a really dumb play of the game just after they changed the formula, so it prioritized like stopping ults quite a lot, which it currently does. Like, it loves it if you stop somebody's ult. And I just knocked someone off a cliff with Farah's little bump rocket, and as I think it was Soldier 76 just went like, I've got you in my, and I fell off a cliff, and then it gave me play of the game for that, and it was really anticlimactic, but it had this spectacular opening with like Farah rocketing in, and then like her wings opening, and all these rockets coming out, and then it's just me like bumping a man off a cliff.
And that's how I knocked the dude over.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I totally agree that 2-person play the games would be amazing.
Because they do that great like team photo at the end, I think.
Yeah, it's really
and
cool.
I don't know quite how it works. At first I thought it was, it looked so beautifully composed. I thought characters were actually kind of interacting with each other, like leaning on each other. And then I realized, no, that's just Diva leaning on her mech. And that's that's just one character.
Yeah.
But they could do stuff like that. They could have, if you've got both the brothers on the same team, maybe they like have some particular way they stand next to each
It
other.
was really weird in the all Genji, all Hanzo mode because it was like a weird family photo of clones, like at the very end.
Yeah, you can also unlock poses for that screen as well.
Right.
New ways you stand at the end of the game.
Yeah, there's a lot of unlockables. Like I leveled up to level 4 across like 2 games last night, I think. So I've got 4 loot chests and stuff. Like I can't see myself buying any loot chests or anything.
No.
Like
I thought about it, but no.
I think I would probably, well, it depends how into it I get, but if I did get into it, there are some skins that I would buy if they were reasonably priced, because there are, like, they would be expensive if you could buy them, but, the sort of the very, last skins in the unlock tree are things that, like, don't just change the color, but actually remodel the whole thing.
Yeah.
And some of them are fucking insane. Like, Lucio becomes like a robot with a giant spherical head. It's like,
Because
what?
his symbol, like, because he's supposed to be a DJ, and his, like, I don't know, his, like, Skrillex style symbol is like a frog.
Oh, it's
And
like
it's like a massive frog mask that he puts on.
so
but
more
it-
like maybe like Dead
He's like
Mouse
Dead
or
Frog.
something, yeah.
Yeah, Dead Mouse would be a better example than Skrillex. The man who's famously an animal. Yeah.
Skrillex style mouse.
Yeah, some of them are great.
also,
some are really
like,
dumb.
If you are annoyed about Widowmaker's get up, then one of her unlockable things is like an awesome countess costume,
Yeah.
which is like fucking great.
Her pre-order costume's not bad either compared to her default skin.
Oh yeah,
However, one of her unlockable costumes is a lot worse.
Isn't it like a French maid outfit?
No, it's a Moulin Rouge theme skin.
Oh, okay.
Because
yeah.
because she's French.
they do go to some really questionable sort of stereotype places with that
But
stuff.
I'm just gonna say this again, and I know I've told you this before, but I just don't understand why she, as the sniper who kills people from really fucking far away, is the one wearing all the sexy outfits alluring people. Like, why have they made her, like, the weird up-close sexy lady assassin who then just hides in a bell tower and, like, picks people off without them even seeing her and being allured?
I think
Like,
she's-
what is that?
She's one of the examples of the character. I don't know. It feels like she fell down the design stairs, picking up ideas as she fell down the design stairs. Like, she's a spider, but she's also a French noir fatale sniper cat burglar.
Who,
There is-
but, like, she
there's
was
an
also,
interesting
like,
thing-
a brainwashed person who then killed her own husband.
Yeah,
Then
that
turned
was
like-
blue.
That was dumb, but
yeah,
also
and she's
I
blue.
like that there's a kind of a, like, her name is a little bit of a sly reference, because Widowmaker, but she was the widow she made, right? She killed her own
Yeah.
husband.
But it was like, it was also really weird, like, on that front, because so presumably he loves her no matter what she looks like. So was she like, what, did she just snipe him from the other side of their really big bedroom or something? Like, what?
Yeah.
I've got to be in my bonnet about that one.
A spider in your bonnet, more like.
Well, the spider would catch the bee.
I shut everybody up. Well, no arguing that.
I quite like the designs on the whole, but yeah. I think Widowmaker stands out as being, like, actually, because her Countess uniform thing, where she looks like a marquis or something, is fucking cool, and it's sort of a shame that that's not her. Even her pre-order costume, where she's got like these sort of crazy sci-fi dreads and like a kind of cyberpunk leather outfit, is more interesting than her
Yeah.
default purple catsuit.
Reaper has cool get-ups too. Like, it starts out looking awful, and then, like, one of the unlockable ones is, like, a bright white and gold bandito outfit. Like a
I'd
massive
really-
sombrero.
I'd really like him in a kind of Rick Ross style, like, massive fur coat, kind of just like...
Yeah. His pre-order one is so weird, because it's the dude he was before he turned all evil.
Yeah.
So it's
yeah.
just a dude in a beanie. Like, he's supposed to be like the Grim Reaper, like, and I play with that skin, but it looks really wrong, because he like crosses himself with the shotguns and like
Yeah, and
teleports
his
like a
voice
ghost.
is still...
And he still
the
talks
Reaper
like,
voice.
death rises, and it's just a man in a hat and like weather appropriate clothes.
rise.
Yeah, exactly.
Is he like a real try-hard that you'll see, like, lurking outside McDonald's trying to, like, look really hard in front of his mates?
I don't know, because it just doesn't ring quite true. And that's one as well, because I think Reaper is supposed to be like a Hispanic character, and that's why he gets the mariachi skin with the sombrero
right.
and thing and the guitar on his back. It's Blizzard's sort of weird.
I would happily pay for unlockable voices to replace the voices I don't like, which
Yeah.
is half of them.
There's
How do you feel about Tracer?
Fucking hate the voice. I actually really like her character design, and I haven't played as her properly yet, but I like her ability set. It seems cool.
The Cockney thing is...
But the voice, yeah.
They actually redid.
I actually turned voice volume off completely at the start of the game because, like, there's an intro. I don't like Winston's voice either. And there was something. Oh yeah, in the tutorial, Tracer speaks, and as soon as she spoke, I went to the options and turned all voice volume to 0 because I couldn't take it.
Does that get rid of the cues for their ults,
Yep.
though?
Yeah, it's a massive tactical disadvantage, but it's a price I'll pay.
I see.
Some of them have non-vocal. A lot of them it's vocal, and it's quite important.
But actually, yeah, turning off the voice. They did a good job of really turning off all the voice because, like, even the robots don't speak in the train. Like, the robots have little kind of like just whelps when they get hurt or something, and they don't even have those if you turn the voice off.
Oh dear.
You can't even like test your voice lines. It's all just total silence.
They redid Mercy's voice over the course of the beta because it was originally, I think, American actress putting on a German-Austrian accent. And they ended up getting an Austrian actress to do
That's
it.
good.
Which I think they did for the others as well. And I was like, why
What's her
didn't...
name? Is it like Angela Ziegel?
Mercy's
Ziegler,
name is,
maybe.
it's Angela Ziegler. Because
Yeah,
she's like an
that's what
angel,
I was-
so...
Yeah, I get it.
But to be fair, Angela is like, it means bringer of light.
Yeah,
so
but it is
you
not
think
much
it's
to-
too on the nose?
yeah, I mean, given that she's a
Yeah.
woman that dresses like an angel. Angel
What, you'd like
Valkyrie
her
thing.
to be like a woman who dresses as an angel and calls herself the Batman or something?
No, but
Like,
her
that
name doesn't need to be...
make
Her
sense
actual
either.
birth name doesn't need to be Angela.
Yeah, because her name is Mercy, like her assumed name is Mercy, and it's annoying that her real name is also like suspiciously appropriate to what she ended up doing.
Yeah.
Nominative determinism is my least favorite thing about comics.
Maybe it's because your name doesn't really lend itself to it unless you were to become a superhero
I've gone to
that
France
was
a
like
lot.
a big cat.
French Tom.
Did
But
you
yeah,
get
no,
Big
and
Cat?
when they said the thing about...
Cat.
Oh, I see. Sorry.
You see,
I was thinking about my surname.
I'd forgotten that you had a last name.
When they said that thing about Mercy, I was like, oh, maybe they could get a British actress to do Tracer.
Yeah,
And they did.
yeah.
They did. That's a British actress.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What happened to her?
I don't know.
It's like when Alice tries to do a Cockney accent.
Is it perhaps not a Cockney British actress?
I imagine so. I don't know. I think they were going for there's a particular kind of naive comic book thing they're going for.
Yeah, I mean,
that
actually,
underscores everything about that thing.
When I heard it again, I realised it's not just the accent, it's the kind of the tone and just the acting. It's incredibly fake.
Yeah, it's not nuanced. I'd give it that. I think maybe spoiled by Team Fortress though in that particular regard.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly think it's a better game. I just, it's not a piece of high literature by any stretch of the imagination. And that's Overwatch.
Yep. You've been playing Warhammer, right?
I played like 12 hours of Total War, Warhammer, The Reckoning,
The War.
Origins. Yeah, no. And so yeah, so I'm like 95 turns into a campaign now, and I don't know whether I like it.
But isn't that because you've basically picked the goody two shoes Empire nonsense?
They're not. There's no goody two shoes function in Warhammer. That
yeah,
would say
but
is
they're
its
the
favourite.
ones that are
So,
like not fun orcs
They're
flailing
humans.
around,
They're
flying,
humans, yeah.
flinging
So
people
I
at stuff, is it?
deliberately, so it would ground some of the things I have to say about it by saying I did deliberately want to experience it for the first time from the point of view of a little bit of a more familiar position. So I picked the faction that I knew would be a little bit like previous Total War games in order for the weird stuff, the fantasy races, the orcs and the vampires and the chaos and everything else, to feel a bit more new and different, because rather than jump into something that plays completely differently and maybe not have a sense of context, I wanted to sort of feel like, especially because I find the proposition for the Imperial campaign among the more interesting, actually. So that's the flip side to it, is the Imperial campaign is essentially, you're the new emperor, the empire is sort of falling apart and it's lots of different factions. You've got to unite as much of it as possible because chaos is going to screw everybody and the world's going to end. So it is the Game of Thrones problem, which is a compelling reason to do a campaign, rather than like the Orc campaign, which is like, can you just kill a lot of people? And the Chaos campaign, which is, can you end the world? And the Dwarf campaign, which is, can you clear off everything that's in the big book of grudges and then go back home?
They've got a burn book.
They do. Yeah.
See.
Yeah, exactly.
Can everyone play as Chaos?
Yes. No, you need to pre-order or buy it. Sorry.
Or buy it?
Buy the DLC.
Oh, right, buy it. I see, separately.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I play as the Empire, and like, so it's a hard one to unpick, and I kind of wish Tom Senior was here just to help me unpick Warhammer and Total War at the same time because he knows a lot about both. But so one thing about it is definitely a Total War game, and I would say that it is 90% Total War, 10% Warhammer. And a lot of the things that you might have gotten tired of or fed up with in previous Total War games are absolutely present in it in terms of the structure of the campaign, the types of situations you find yourself in, the kind of the rhythm of it, even the weaknesses of the battle system, even those sort of like those moments where people have gone, is this idea of a turn-based campaign that is played out in real-time battles actually that gratifying at a certain level? And it's made me think all those things again. The Warhammer thing is super cool. And I'll start by talking about the reasons. Initially, my impression was very positive, and specifically because of the license. And one thing is, I think, I didn't realize, but I think a lot of my problems with previous Total War games stemmed from the fact that it was historical, and the fact that obviously limits where it can go and how crazy it can be and how balanced things can be. But also it means that certain gamey things it does, or particularly board gamey things it does to do with resources and kind of managing your power over turns, you start to feel less like you're enacting history and more like you're just pressing the button that gets you the most stuff. And it sort of becomes a game in a way that undermines the setting. Because Warhammer is a game, that stuff feels less egregious, and it also allows them to frame it in ways that feel bigger and brasher and have more character. So if you're like slaughtering all of your captives in order to, and to put them to the sword, the buff that gets you is a leadership bonus because everyone's more impressed by you now that you've put all your enemies to the sword, which would feel a bit kind of crass and cartoonish if that was their approach to history. But crass and cartoonish is absolutely fine when you're talking about orcs and wizards and stuff. There is a weird thing there where you can pardon skeletons for money. If you defeat the vampire counts, you'll be like, you captured 600 units. And then one of the standard options is pardon them. Like, I forgive you, little skeleton.
So what does that mean? Do they become part of your army?
No, they go back to their army, but their families pay you.
Families? Seriously?
Like, the descriptive text for that is totally designed for human enemies, where it's like, because you've released them, you get like a tithe from whoever they go back home to. And that's like, so essentially when you win a battle, it's like, kill them for a leadership buff, which prevents your troops from running away in future battles, which is useful. If they're human, or I guess if they're the same race as you, you can recruit them to help replenish your army. Like you don't recruit the specific unit, but it like replenishes all of your units by a certain amount. Or you can pardon them, which is like the money option if you're really starved for money. And initially I wasn't doing that at all because it was so absurd. You can also pardon orcs, which is like, that feels wrong. But that's a blip on what is otherwise quite a better presentation of all those different game systems and stuff. And that feels really good.
That's what America's hoping for when it pardons those turkeys every year. Like, for the cash flow
Tithes
of
from
the
the turkey family.
kingdom, you know?
Yes.
And don't do it again. And by it, I mean be a turkey.
Yeah. What are they pardoning the turkeys for?
Well, I've asked about this, and I was like, is it just their crimes?
Yeah, I think it's just all turkeys are condemned to die from birth, and then
Yeah.
only these ones get a pardon.
Yeah, like, because it is to do with dinner, isn't it? Like, them being for food for Thanksgiving. It's a Thanksgiving thing, yeah?
Yeah. It's strange to pardon them at the time that you're killing so
And they
many
don't,
others.
it's not like they pardon
We forgive
sweet
you.
potatoes either, you know? Or like the other things that you'll find.
A sweet potato can never redeem themselves after what they did.
Or maybe they're not rich enough. Maybe they just don't have the tithes.
No tithes
you know?
from the fellow tubers.
But none of that is any more or less absurd than pardoning a skeleton. So like,
Fair.
and
I
that,
suppose it's no weirder than getting gold every time you kill a creep in Dota. It's like,
no,
what
that's
was
true.
that? It's pocket
There is a
money?
lore
Maybe they're
explanation
carrying
for that.
Is there?
Yes, but I don't want to get into it
Oh,
because
sorry.
we literally will draw complaints from my 20-minute explanation of the Book of Wheels. So yeah, and I've had quite a lot of fun with it. Like I said, it ate a huge chunk of my weekend, in a good way, in that kind of getting drawn into a strategy game way. Like, quickly kind of conquered one Imperial usurper, put them all to the sword and took over that part of the Empire, and then convinced another part of the Empire to become, join a confederacy with me, which basically gave all their stuff to me. And I felt like I was, a kind of ruthless new emperor, just like, just taking the Empire back by force, because I know that chaos is coming, we need to be ready for it. And then I had this sort of like heroic moment when this other part of the Empire that I'd convinced to join me, they had taken some land in the east, which is basically where the Lord of the Rings version of the Hobbits live. in the Moot. And not Lord of the Rings, the Warhammer version of the Hobbits.
Imagine, if you will, a Lord of the Rings version of the Hobbits.
And I had this, I was pretty sure that this one particular city was going to get hit by the vampire counts pretty soon. And I moved my whole army, like, there, and I managed to get there, like, the turn before the vampires attacked in force, which created this cool narrative of, like, this massive Imperial army showing up the night before what would have been this sort of disastrous massacre. And it was a huge combined force of zombies, many of whom I subsequently forgave, led by Manfred von Karstein, who's this like necromancer Dracula, basically. And I set my army up in the corner of the map because I knew that I just had to hold. Like, they were going to charge me because they were the aggressors. And in that instance, the fact that it's not a human faction feels right. Like, you have this huge horde of, like, shit infantry, basically, led by these necromancers and bats in the sky that come down and, like, mob your units. And your dudes are particularly afraid of that. And it felt really cool. Like, I set all my troops up in a semicircle in the corner of the map, nowhere to run because I knew that I just had to hold the line, basically. And you have my general unit who's flying around the battlefield using his abilities on cooldown to, like, rally people and stuff like that and control the charge. And then in that battle, I lost Karl Franz, the Emperor, quite early. Like, they don't die, the heroes. They go back to the capital to get better, and then they're back 4 turns later, basically. But it's a huge setback to lose them. But in a previous Total War game, your units might just break and run away if the general dies. And in this, I think it's because I'd been quite ruthless up to that point. I had, like, fucking massive leadership score. So most of the units held the line. And one of my flanks won, and I folded it onto the other flank and killed Manfred von Karstein in the battle. And when you kill a necromancer, all of the undead, like, are on a timer. Where it's like the force binding them is weakened. So, and then suddenly I realized I could win it. And it gave me, like, a proper Pyrrhic victory thing, but actually held the line and won the battle. And then, you know, and it felt like this amazing kind of, like, tide turns moment in a way that was super gratifying. At this point, I think that this was maybe the highlight of my time with it so far, and all the systems sort of worked together. Then, however, and it might be because I expanded too much too early, and maybe in subsequent campaigns I play more wisely, but I got sort of mega fucked over in a series of ways that felt suddenly very old Total War-y, and these are the things that make me a bit circumspect about the game generally. So, basically, so Chaos just attacks a bit like a Horde from previous Total War games, like the Golden Horde or, like in Attila or something like that. You have these, Horde mechanics, basically. You also have orcs that will rise up from their camps and sort of spill down into and go raiding. And also you can have rebellions in your provinces, which lead to some factions coming back. And all of these 3 things happen to me at once. And I'd set up an alliance with the Bretonnians, that are like the Warhammer French people in the West, who are basically solving the orc problem for me. And they were doing a really good job of it until they lost one battle, which is just auto-resolved. So that's just random luck of the chance. Luck of the chance. A phrase. Luck of the chance. And that led to a big orc horde just going from city to city and I couldn't get to them. Because I don't believe it's possible to maintain big enough armies to meaningfully challenge the stacks that are sent against you in large numbers. So I had 2 armies, and that was all the money I could afford to spend on armies. And I just couldn't chase these armies around the map fast enough to catch them and force them to fight me. Like, just couldn't really get to them or do anything about them. And meanwhile, I have Chaos coming in from another direction, also sacking cities, and then you have another faction rising up at the same time. And it didn't feel like a satisfying twist to the campaign. Like, it kind of works into the same narrative, like I was fighting in the East and then the West went to shit. But it didn't feel like I could make a decision, like, if that said Mao thing is true and like a good strategy game is like a series of interesting decisions, it felt like I could make very few actual decisions about it other than patch up the crisis as best I could, which basically meant completely pulling out of abandoning all the things I was doing in the East, chasing these armies around for a while, rolling the dice to try and get rid of enemy agents that are fucking things up in all your provinces and making everything harder. And that's a crap system. I think they need to strip that out. So you have these enemy agents that can come in and spread chaos or dissent in your provinces. And the only way to get rid of them properly is to send one of your agents against them. But assassinating them is way harder than anything they can do to you. So if they're just in your province, they're causing a huge problem that will need dealing with your limited resources. But assassinating them is like an 11% chance to succeed that costs a lot of money and might kill your guy. And so it's sort of like, it's a questionable sort of value proposition. And maybe it all works in this sort of grand, incredibly complicated scheme of the game, but it's very unsatisfying to try and deal with.
They added espionage to Galciv in an expansion, and it was just shit. It was just like every spy just cost more and more after, each one made the price of spies more expensive. And if you infiltrated a spy in an enemy place, the only way to get rid of it was them to send their own spy at it. So it's just like, who can spend the most money on this thing? And the money just cancels each other out. And it's just whoever is richest wins, which is already the case in every other system. So,
And so I entered a long period of firefighting, disbanded whole armies to be able to afford it and avoid going bankrupt. And I pulled it back together, and the face of the diplomatic landscape has changed and stuff. And I got my empire back, but I've probably got another 30 turns ahead of me just rebuilding stuff I've lost. And in that time, I'm putting it fuck over again. So maybe this campaign is a wash now. I don't really know. But it feels like the sacrifices I was making in response to this crisis I didn't deal well with happened so slowly and was so inevitable. I feel like I lost all my agency for like 30 turns, because it was like, this has happened and I'm fucked. And maybe it's random luck. Maybe it's, just bad management on my part, but dealing with it is now just a chore. Like, if there was an option that was like, I can express my intent, which is, I'm sacrificing this city I just saved in the east to move all my armies home, to kick everything out and then rebuild everything. Can I skip to the point where that's done? Because there's no failure in any of it. Like, and this is, I guess, the other weakness is a lot of the time, what should be really exciting battles become really rote, because most of the time, most battles are hugely one-sided. So it's either your massive doom stack hitting something that can't really deal with it, which you might as well auto-resolve, because charging your Imperial Knights at some goblins is fun the first couple of times, but after that it's like, I'm just going to auto-resolve this one. Or it's a stack that comes out of nowhere in the fog of war because you had no idea what Chaos was doing, and they just sail about over the sea and they hit one of your cities, and there's no defending against it, because it's like, you've got the 40 dudes that garrison that city, because you can't afford to garrison everything. And they've got a huge doom stack that the game has generated to provide a challenge, so you auto-resolve it. There's no value in trying to mount heroic defense. And then occasionally you get the interesting matched battles where it's a lot more interesting, a lot more fun. But it feels like it doesn't offer that up regularly enough, given that it's what the game is about. And as a consequence, I think it feels incredibly uneven.
When you're on that tactical level, does it feel like they've managed to use mechanics to give the armies a sense of character? Like, beyond just the aesthetics of the units, does it feel like, I'm not that familiar with the lore, but I assume like the undead have loads of just chaff that you have to burn through, of the undead, like a buffer. I assume orcs just run at you like
yeah. It's interesting. Like, again, this is a topic where I wish Tom was here, because I think he'd be more eloquent about this than I am. I don't think it feels different enough, but I have to caveat that by saying I am playing the boring humans. So my strategies aren't very different to what I would do in another Total War game, which also has human style infantry units of that era.
Do you have wizards?
I do have wizards. Wizards are just kind of like artillery that you put in. It's like the powers are cool. They are fiddly. Like, having to just make sure you're refreshing things on a cooldown. I think because a lot of the powers aren't like massive changes to the battlefield. It's like +8 leadership for units in a radius. And that's a shout that your general can do. You kind of just want him to shout it every time it's available. Like, going back to this very rare as I felt like, using it at this time rather than this time turned the tide of that battle. It's more like I'm just topping up the numbers that are making the number wang go well for my faction. And that's a weakness, I think. And it definitely feels great. Like, I had a wizard. He vanished, I think, because of a bug. Not in the lore or anything. Like, I mean, I think he was killed in an auto-resolving crisis. But
I think it's in the lore for wizards to just randomly explode.
Yeah. yeah, I think it is actually.
Always buggering off places.
He probably just buggered off. But like, it is kind of cool having this one guy at the back who's like bringing down spells. Actually, I will say that the wizard heroes, like when they're stood at the back, like surrounded by magical energy, like pulling lightning down, even if it is just damage on a unit, they feel a lot more new and interesting, and their abilities more interesting to deploy than I guess what you would define as like the warrior heroes. whose impact is initially super cool until you realize that every army has one. So like, Karl Franz, who's the leader of the Empire, I've got him quite well upgraded now, and he's riding a flying griffin with a huge warhammer, appropriately enough, that he like swoops out into battle, and when he swings it, like whole units of people go flying back from him with like these pulses of magical energy, and it looks rad. However, pretty much any Imperial hero can be upgraded to that point, and any Imperial army will be led by a single unit, the general, who's now a single unit, who is like kind of like as powerful as a regular unit. And again, it looks great when it's like a big named character and huge, great armor fighting another, when it's, I don't know. And when it's like super magic Holy Roman Emperor versus Dracula, that's when it kind of comes alive. But when it's just two random dudes who happen to be as strong as 30 men for some reason, whittling each other's health bars forever, it feels super weak. Also, something that maybe shouldn't happen as often as it should is you get to the point where you've won a battle, but it would be really advantageous to kill the enemy general. And if you click the victory button, it'll just say like the enemy general survived to fight another day if he's not actually died on the field, which is a problem in previous Total War games. But previous Total War games, they were just dudes in units. They weren't like a magic big man. And I remember repelling the first Chaos invasion, got them down to their last powerful Chaos wizard, who was like crushed his entire army with the help of an allied force. Cool battle, really enjoyed that one. But it ended up with this Chaos wizard jogging through the woods because he'd routed. So he's just jogging across a huge map. He's bigger than a man, but he's still pretty much big man sized on a vast landscape. And he's jogging. And I had the victory button up, so I could click to end the match. But it's like, I want to kill him because I want him gone. Like, I don't want him to go and make another army. And and you have then, and I had probably 600 men chasing him, like whittling down his colossal health bar. And the only way to get him to stop and take damage was to like run my cavalry ahead of him, then box him in, like, and then close him in and then zoom in close. And so you can see him trying to jog because he's not fighting anymore. He's just jogging. And as little spearmen come up to him and kind of scrape at him. And then eventually he just like explodes into ash and it's like, the enemy general is dead, my lord. And it's like, yeah, long fucking last he is. And that feels like, I don't know, that's the sort of jank I'm talking about. That's where the fantasy breaks down a little bit. And you feel like, man, you should have, like, when these characters die, that should be as heroic as when they're fighting. Like, it needs to be as impactful. It needs to feel as lethal as when they're fighting as well. They can't just be whittled down until they fall over. Like, little things like that. But I guess without anyone else having played it, it's not a lot to bounce it off, but I like it. I think it's just, and I want to play more of it. Like, I want to try the other factions. I want to, because it is super engaging, but I don't know, for all of the numbers it throws at you and all of its vast complexity, like every unit in the game has 12 stats and all the rest of it. I wonder at how much impact I'm actually having, if that makes sense. So yeah, don't know, basically. I was ready for it to be great, and I think it's a Total War game. So, what have you been playing, John?
I squeezed in one mission of Duskers today. It's not really enough time for me to say anything more interesting than all the reviews that have come out, but it is very good, very atmospheric, and I did kill most of my drones in a horrible accident.
Really?
Yeah.
So explain Duskers.
Duskers is, I think people have said it's the closest thing we'll get to Alien the game, which doesn't include an alien. So I don't know where I'm going with this. You play like the sole surviving human on a ship, and everything's gone horribly wrong, and your only hope of survival is to pilot your ship across the galaxy, scavenging from various other derelicts with the aid of several remote-controlled drones, which you manipulate through a command line interface. There's no clicking and so on. So the kind of thing you're doing is typing like navigate 1 to R3, and that sends drone number 1 off to room 3. And you'll open doors along the way, and once it's there, you'll tell it to scavenge from so on, scavenge equipment, or power up generators so you can open doors and that kind of stuff. But all you can really see for your view is a kind of schematic plan view, where everything's laid out. You see rooms and so on. But you can also switch to a view of the drones, which is this really interesting kind of retro sensor view. I don't really know how to describe it best. It looks like something you'd see on an ancient CRT monitor while you're watching the Marines from Aliens breach into a compound, and everything's sort of abstract and representative.
It's very like noisy and white or green or red, depending on what you're.
Yeah.
Actually, I haven't picked this out, but some of my drones see in red and some of them see in green or white, and I don't know what that means. But it's I don't have any sense of what these rooms look like.
No, it's
like,
very
you
sort of
can-
impressionistic and so on.
It's not unpleasant. You can see where you're going and everything, but it's just it's not representative of what the room would actually look like.
Yeah. And so you're navigating these areas, and there are bad things in them. And in the tradition of the best horror games, you never really get a good look at them. You're seeing them through your drone sensors and their weird abstract heat signatures that kind of run at you and scare the shit out of you. And then the feed from your drone snaps off because it's been got by whatever this thing is. So most of the way that you encounter them is by motion scanning from a nearby room and then something will ping up and say, there's something moving in this room. How do you want to deal with it? And you can do that by luring it into another room. Or my cunning plan was to power up a generator, interface with the computer, and turn on the sentry gun inside that room, which then blew this horrible thing away, whatever it was. Great, problem solved. Send in all the drones to the new room.
Hello.
And suddenly all their feeds switched off. And it's like,
That's very interesting to hear, because I have interacted with that same system multiple times, and it is ambiguous. You interface with the control panel, it just says defenses on, defenses off. And you think, defenses, what does that mean? Like, does it mean, because the things the threats, you'd never really know what they are, but there's just something moving around. And it makes perfect sense that the defenses would attack that. But will they attack me? I'm just a drone. Maybe drones like this patrol this strip regularly and it won't attack me. But I always have turned it off in advance because I thought, well, let's not find out the hard way. And now you found out the hard way.
But yeah, there's a little bit of DNA from FTL, I think. So I think it's procedurally generated, and you'll get different derelicts every time, and you'll find different kind of loot for your drones. Each time these can be things that let you power up generators or scavenge, or more interesting stuff that let you put down mines or emit kind of weird sonar blasts to chase enemies out from areas.
Yeah, so did you actually see a thing that attacked you?
No, I
Was it
saw
represented on the screen?
I saw a kind of pile of parts that used to be a thing.
Me too. So I had a thing where I'd programmed the doors. Basically, I figured out a way to kind of shut off the rooms that we were in, let the alien, or the threat, whatever it is, like on the motion scanner, it's just this room is red and the other rooms are green. And so there's something in there, I don't know what it is, but if I open this door, I can watch that room go green and the next room go red. And now I know something bad is in that room, which is kind of like a lot of its power is just like, you don't know what the fuck the thing is. It's just something. And then I opened the door to the turret room and I turned the turret on, and the door opened and the room that was previously red went green, and then the door just stayed open, and then you could see it trying to close and it couldn't close. And both rooms are green, so the thing is gone, and it's just, there's something in the way of the door now. And that's the closest I've come to knowing what it is. It's just an obstacle in the door, and it's safe. But
I think the main challenge of it is going to be recovering from whatever stupid thing that you did. So it will be a disaster in the first 5 minutes of you playing, and then it's you scraping by from then on.
I was going to say about it, because I played it probably a similar amount, I think, just the tutorial and the first, you start in a sector of space that has 4 or 5 ships, and I've boarded all of those now, and I've left that sector, and that's where I stopped playing. And I've heard lots of people say that it's kind of brutal, and it hasn't been too bad for me. I was expecting it to just, go into nightmare mode, because it's a weird interface already. You're pressing type commands, and everything's a keyboard shortcut. I don't think the mouse ever does anything. You have a cursor, but I don't think you have to click on anything. You always have to either use cursor keys or type letters, which actually worked really, really well. And it's surprising how quickly you get used to that. And I was expecting it to be that plus nightmare difficulty and just everything going wrong all at once. But A, there's a tutorial that's really good, and then B, the first 2 missions I did literally had no threat. There was nothing on the ship that could kill me. You're just exploring the ship and learning the controls. And then the next 3 did have just one bad thing on the ship each, and in every case it was always possible to get the full picture of where it was, and it was always possible to let it into rooms you'd already been in and explore the whole ship without disturbing it. I've heard it has one thing that greatly appeals to me, which is that you board these ships and then you count lots of doors and rooms and stuff, and then sometimes you just find a door that leads to no room and it's an airlock. And one of the things you can do is just type like dock A2, and that makes your ship fly around and dock with the other airlock. Which is exactly what you do in Heat Signature. And so that's great. And apparently, I didn't know this, but if you actually clear all the threats and explore all the rooms, you can just take that ship, and that's just your ship now. Which is also a thing you do in Heat Signature.
So can you try and lure the alien into the airlock and then vent it?
You can, I did that. And it seemed to work, like the alien was gone, and then the room went a different colour, because now it's irradiated. And then it started to irradiate all the other rooms, and I think I'd left you have to power these doors to use them. You have to have one of your drones just manning a power generator, basically. And I'd moved on from that power generator to use another one, and so I couldn't operate any of the doors, and so the radiation was just flooding the ship and making more and more of it, like, I assume it hurts your drones. I've never actually tried going into the radiation, but it makes such a huge deal of it, the game, that I assume your drones can't go in radiation or they die if they do or something.
Could you pick up the creature if you make the thing dock and then like have it on there and get a look at it?
I mean, so far, I was attacked by one. I don't know how it happened because it wasn't showing any motion or anything, but as on my way out from a mission, suddenly one of my drones started losing health. I didn't really see what did it, but in general, you can't do anything to it. So you can't attack it directly, at least with any of the tools I've got so far. And if it gets to you, you're basically fucked. All I could do is run away and leave the mission as soon as possible.
But you say you are something on a remote ship.
Yeah, you're just like someone sitting at a terminal somewhere that's not represented in the game at all,
Okay.
and you just type commands to your drones, so everything on screen is just your drones.
Okay, so but you are on this ship that you can dock with stuff, right?
Yeah, I think you're in a smaller ship
okay.
that docks with the bigger ships, and I guess you stay in it and your drones go out and actually do
I was
stuff.
going to say, can you let the alien into the ship you're in
That's
physically?
what I was asking.
I think so. I think there's problems if it gets to the first room you start in.
It's funny because someone just did this in Heat Signature for the first time. I didn't think you could, but I changed the way contents work recently so that if a live guard chases you into your pod and then you undock, we just stop simulating what's on board your pod. And so basically there's this really awkward journey. This is like...
I'll kill you when I'm simulated again.
This was Nerd Cubed playing it, and I didn't know this was possible, but he evidently inadvertently picked up someone who was chasing him, and then when he docked at the station, the guy just ran loose in the station. So there's like an enemy in this space that's supposed to be totally friendly.
Nice.
It'd be quite good if Duskers had some sort of schlocky Five Nights at Freddy's style scare if you where you look up from the terminal and
If the creature gets on a ship and
it's not about
undock and then suddenly a claw just comes across the screen.
Like I'd never play it if that was the case.
Actually, there'd just be like a massive splat of blood on the screen. That's all you see, and then it gets dark.
Is the interface because I think when people were mentioning about typing and command lines and stuff, I started envisioning another one of those games where it tries to force you to learn how to code much against your will.
It lets you do that if you want to. You can do things like you can write out a whole bunch of commands and then assign those to like a script. You can say create script that does this, and then this, and then run that script later.
But if you're the opposite of Tom, like I am,
so it feels like shortcuts more than programming. It's just like navigate 1 to R3, and you don't need to do anything more complicated than that so far, at least.
Okay.
You can also steer them around with the cursor keys as well, but.
And you kind of need to sometimes because the pathfinding's terrible. Like, they're okay with navigating rooms, but if there's a drone in their way, they don't know what to do about that. They'll just bump into it like 19 times, then abort.
Fair. Okay. What's the overriding purpose? Are you just trying to last for as long as possible, or is there a thing that you're...
I think so. Your main purpose is to gather fuel for jumps out of the sector and so on, but I'm not sure what you're actually jumping to. I don't know if you're just surviving for as long as possible until your inevitable failure, or if there's some sort of win state. I'm not sure yet.
I heard someone say that you're the last person alive, I didn't even pick up on that if that was explained to me. I had no idea what I'm doing. I'm just like started the game and clearly I need to board these ships and get some scrap.
Yeah, that's enough for you. That reasoning, that's solid.
It's really cool when you find like in fact, yeah, my theory that the defense things might not attack drones because these ships might have had drones on them is totally backed up by what happens because you find drones aboard these ships, like defunct ones. Okay. And if they're destroyed, you can loot them, but nothing else. But sometimes you find one that's just disabled, and that means you can't activate it then and there, but you can drag it back to your ship, and so you can tow stuff, and that's really cool. I love like telling one of my drones to tow something and then telling him how to drag it back to my ship and drop it off there and then come back in.
Speaking of scavenging and atmosphere, I've been playing Fallout 4 DLC, Far Harbor.
Oh, how is that?
I'm just going to take a moment to bask in my own segue.
Yeah.
I think it's really, really good. With the proviso that you enjoyed Fallout 4. I think a lot of people are tired of or very quickly become tired of the Bethesda game now.
I didn't until Fallout 4, and I don't dislike Fallout 4, but I just had no impetus to play it beyond a certain point, and I was enjoying it, and then I just kind of trailed off because it was so like Fallout 3.
It
Same.
feels like it's not exactly Burnout, it's just
I think you meant Burnout the racing game. Of course it's not Burnout. Can't blame them for that.
Well, the DLC is kind of like a microcosm of Fallout. It's not one of their wacky ones that they did for Fallout 3, like Mothership Zeta.
Operation Anchorage. Is that?
That was Bethesda.
And the Pit.
The Pit was genuinely good.
I thought so, yeah.
Yeah. But this is like another big landmass. You go up the coast to a little island just off Maine, in Maine, in pursuit of a missing girl. It's one of the detective agency's quests. And once you're there, you're introduced to several factions who are all kind of at each other's throats, and there's lots of new places to go and new equipment and so on. And it kind of fixes where I was in Fallout in that I'd seen everything. I'd played it quite a lot, and I'd seen all of the weapons and the equipment, and I was starting to see the template of stuff, like starting to peek behind the curtain, and that's generally where Bethesda games collapse. Like you're not, it's the barrage of newness and discovery that stops you from kind of seeing behind the curtain, for me at least. And this big new influx of stuff was really kind of refreshing. And yes, it's kind of a beautiful place in a weird wastelandy way. It's kind of a wilderness area. It's less like the cities, the city areas. It's back into the wilderness areas, and there's this fog that permeates everything, and it's incredibly atmospheric, and it's one of the main plot points, this radioactive fog. And it's a little bit like the glowing sea area from the southwest bit of the main map.
It sounds a lot like Point Lookout for Fallout 3.
It's very, very similar. Yeah. But yeah, it's like the fog's kind of this radioactive hazard, and the locals of the island being pushed off to one little corner of it because it's poisonous, and they have to erect these cool-looking condenser things, which are like blue lanterns scattered throughout the fog, and that's just beautiful. But yeah, and so you set out into this dangerous landscape and do your Fallout things and so on.
Are there not some very impressive crabs?
There are truly impressive
crabs.
Yes, there are lots of new fun enemies. They've had fun with them, and this is kind of the reason I quite like the Bethesda expansion packs, and that they've got familiarity with the tools and the setting, and they're just starting to sort of play a little bit and have some fun. And so you get, I don't want to spoil any of them because they're kind of surprising the way that they turn up, but
they're not all crabs though.
They're not all crabs. You're on the coast. A lot of them are
gonna be a lot
sort
of crabs.
Marine themed. But yeah, they have.
I think there's some in the trailer, right?
Yeah, I think so. So
You could spoil
you've got
those.
kind of radioactive salamanders called gulpers who kind of stalk around, and I can't remember their name, but they're like anglerfish. They lurk just below the surface, and they have a lure that comes up, which looks like one of the flowers that you kind of want to harvest for your crafting things.
Excellent.
And there's been a few times where you try and pick the thing on the lake, and suddenly it's a mouth, and you're running terrified.
Oh my god, imagine if was it Oblivion, if Nirnroot had suddenly turned out to be like an evil monster.
Yeah, it's a similar sort of thing. But it's slightly frustrating in, again, writing and design is just balls, really. Like
That's quite a lot of the game.
Yeah, but like the factions that you're dealing with are not super interesting. Especially if you're like most of the way through the quests for the main game. One of them is the Children of Atom. I think the kind of radioactive cultists that you see pop up, and it's like they're just nut jobs, and they're not really sympathetic characters. And if you side with them, it's just kind of like in the juvenile lol way that you might have blown up Megaton in the previous game. Yeah. It's like I'm just going to side with the arseholes this time. But,
so maybe it's more about atmosphere and newness than it is about.
It's got a really solid sense of place as you kind of creep through the wilderness. There's fog all around you.
People mentioned Stephen King, like in relation to the trailer, I guess, because of that part of the world, or like fogs and sort of spookiness, I guess.
Yeah,
quite Lovecraftian as well, I guess. With
I think they were aiming for that, but they kind of undermine themselves. Like as soon as you get there, it's similar to how one of the very first missions in the main game just throws like a weak death claw and gives you a minigun and power armor, and it just breaks a lot of stuff. Like it shows you something that should be like a really high level, terrifying enemy, and it like levels it down for you so you can have fun killing the big thing with the minigun and power armor. So it says you're introduced to this town, and it's got a wall outside, and these things they're designed to keep out the fog. And it's like, and you get there, and there's like a little scripted scene, and it says, "Who knows? There's noises in the fog. Who knows what's going to come out from it? It could be anything." And then it just throws like 20 of the new enemies at you, and it just completely undermines the sense of discovery and like weirdness that it could have had.
Yeah, the Fallout 4 as a base game is undermined, I think, by that intro, because it feels like they accidentally left the E3 demo in.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, here's our 15
you hit
minute...
our vertical slice.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they put a vertical slice in the beginning of the game for no good reason, really. Like, that's a shame. But maybe they have discovered through, focus testing or whatever, that 90% of people who play a Bethesda game don't see beyond the initial rat punching experience.
You need to preload something, I guess. Someone thought somewhere.
Here's what you can win if you keep playing.
Yeah. But yeah, as quite a high level character, I have fun about this time. I've done this in kind of every Bethesda game. Like, nothing's really a threat anymore. So you just drop all your crap on the ground and you start from scratch again. Which... it's kind of the Half-Life thing, which is really annoying when someone does it to you, but when you're choosing. And
I never considered that. They're kind of like, I will start again.
Yeah. But especially when there's like a whole new landmass, it's kind of just fun walking out as this weird hermit character, like muttering under your breath, land will provide, and so on.
Can you imagine taking that approach to real travel, like arriving in each new country, dropping all your possessions, including all your clothes, on the floor, and just walking naked?
Wouldn't it be
You'd look
better
like a
if
complete
you did that
twat.
before baggage check?
Makes security a lot easier.
And then afterwards, you'll kill a wolf and it'll be holding a rocket launcher, and then everything will be cool again.
Yeah.
Is this when you land in like Seattle or something?
Yeah, exactly.
I did this in Morrowind because I was I played a bunch of characters that like, oh, this is the person I want to be on, like sneaky thief or the dark mage or whatever, and then all of them just got murdered by the first enemy. And then I was, I'm going to be a standard warrior because that's what games are balanced for. And so I was, and I was this cool red guard guy with two-handed sword, and I would wear like a full suit of armor. But like that first enemy that kept killing me with the other characters, he just has this like plain brown robe. And so when I killed him, I took the robe and I wore it. And in Morrowind, you could wear robes over your armor. So I could wear like a full suit of heavy armor and also have a robe on me. And it looked really cool. And then I did really well, and just like everything was, much better balance to that character. I leveled up loads, and I had loads of money, and I was able to use like enchanters to make my own magical stuff. And I would enchant different parts of my clothing and rings and stuff with different spells, like protection stuff, and then also just regenerating health, which is one of the most expensive things to do. Is like a ring that regenerates health all the time. Like a constant effect is always the most expensive thing, and then regenerate health is quite an expensive thing. And you had to go and get like a special unique soul gem that's like a legendary artifact. Then I had to go and fight the toughest enemy and I captured the soul of a god in this unique soul gem. And then I used that to enchant this ring to make it the best quality thing that could just regenerate health all the time. And it ruined the game for me because it could regenerate health faster than almost anything could take it off me. And so, I cast it into the ocean and I threw all my armor in as well, and I just kept my sword and the robe, and so I was just basically like had no armor and just those two items, and then just went about the rest of my adventures with that. And then one day man found that ring and was corrupted by its power.
It's either Lord of the Rings or the story of at least one tech startup.
But yeah, if you're waiting for like a chance to jump back into Fallout, if you let it slide for a little bit, this is a good point. Like the first Automatron was okay. It added a couple of new systems for you to play around throughout the whole game, which was pretty cool. The second one, which I can't even remember, was piss. It was just the most boring thing you can see. But
was it the Wasteland thingy where it gives you a bunch of more building options
or something, and you make
the inevitable arenas DLC.
Makes your colonists fight Deathclaws or something.
Yeah.
It's just rubbish. But yeah, this as a standalone thing, this is the good one, basically.
Cool. Glad to know we're at that point in the Bethesda DLC cycle.
Got to
the alright one, the one that's just feels like a quite high production value but shit mod. Then the good one. The next one will be like entirely cosmetic. I think we need to cycle around to the weird one that unsettles the game slightly.
Yeah, quite looking forward to the weird one.
I think for Skyrim that was like the building houses or adopting children one, probably.
Yeah. And then the one that finishes the main plot, which is the last one they always do, like Dragonborn for Skyrim.
I heard that in Fallout 3 they eventually fixed the thing where like the end of Fallout 3, spoilers for Fallout 3, is you have to go into like a radioactive chamber to pull some kind of switch, and
like your dad before you twice.
And if you can have companions with you at that point, and one of the companions you have is a super mutant who is not only immune to radiation, it actively heals him. It's his lifeblood.
Sorry, she's a lady.
And you can't ask them to go in and do it. They say like, oh, it's something you've got to do yourself. And so you have to go in and die doing it because your companion thinks you should do it yourself. Apparently they patched that.
They did in Brotherhood in their Broken Steel. So you wake up. They even patch it so that Forks says, yeah, that makes lots of sense. I'll do that then.
Boy, good idea.
Yeah, the original ending of Fallout really sucks. Fallout 3, it feels a lot like if you're in the midst of a really melodramatic D&D campaign and someone is determined to heroically kill their character, even though there are better options. So it's like, why don't we just not die in this scenario or like the shit Doctor Who season finale, where even though you've solved a crisis like this every week for the last 8 weeks, now is the time that you have to heroically sacrifice yourself. And yeah, I feel like you should never lead with, we have to heroically sacrifice ourselves and then force the player to do it, even though they're literally surrounded by options. The best one I've ever seen, did you ever see the video playthrough of Fallout 3 as a baby?
No.
It's possible to, like, in the beginning of the game, you are a tiny baby. It's possible to, like, glitch through a door and trick the AI after that point so you can continue the game, but, like, play the entire game as a baby. And there isn't actually a baby model, you're just a very small adult man. Like, if you go into third person, you're just like a baby height. Because you're supposed to be like a crawling baby. So you're a man who's the same height as like a baby on all fours crawling along. And there's a dude who played through the entire game like that. And it only gets really hard at the end, where you need to pull the lethal lever to end the game and sacrifice yourself, and it's too high up. So you have to bring loads of things in your inventory. So he has like a little box and a bucket and a ball, and he like has to stack them all on top of each other and then like hop up, and then you can see behind him like massive Forks, the super mutant, is sort of like looking down going like, this is your destiny. Like, as a baby tries to climb up a thing to heroically irradiate itself.
Speaking of heroic sacrifice,
What?
XCOM 2 DLC.
What?
I've been kind of catching up on DLC. So, and I had a quick blast on Alien Hunters, I think it's called.
It's
Which
all
is
the
one,
bosses, right?
yeah, which lets you wear your enemy's skin and so on. I just played a little bit of it. I think it's going to be good to come back to it over summer when the final expansion pack comes out for it, and that'll be a good game. But it was nice to get a taste of fresh, hot alien bullshit.
Because they can take a move every time you take a move, right? Every action you do.
Literally every action. So most soldiers get 2 actions a turn, and it can move after 1 action. And it brings back all those great memories of encountering each alien for the first time and saying, this is total bullshit. How the hell are you supposed to beat this thing? Then eventually you learn and you adopt tactics that let you do that. And then, fresh alien boss bullshit.
I was talking to Tom Senior about it, and he said that in terms of the great taxonomy of DLC, that's the one that's like a welcome addition to the game, but possibly not enough to justify playing again just for that. So therefore, very good part of a future Game of the Year edition.
Tom, what have you been playing?
I'm playing a game called Imbroglio by Michael Bro, who previously made 868 Hack and what's that one with the glitches? Smeestorp on Twitter, yeah.
Yeah, no, but he made it was the lane
Correct.
pushing game that was where you put a ball in the lane and it would push it towards the other side. It was like a red and blue strip that met in the middle.
Oh, I don't know
And
this
then
one.
you would move the ball around, and if you were standing in one particular strip, it would push the colour of your colour, like, towards the other side. So it was kind of like a weirdly, really interestingly simplified version of a lane pushing game, which was kind of cool.
The one I was
Not
trying to think
that
of was Corrupt, which is like you push a crate around and then at some point magic happens and it gets weird. 868 Hack is so Imbroglio is his new one. It's not on PC yet, but all of his others have come to PC, so I'm assuming it will. And it's on iOS at the moment. And like 868 Hack, it is a roguelike that takes place on a grid where you each time you move, the enemies move, and you move one tile at a time. And to attack an enemy, you just move towards it. The twist this time is that every tile has a weapon on it, and that weapon is what you attack with if you're standing there when you fight the enemy. And when you first play the game, that grid of weapons is predetermined, and it's just about like enemies spawn at the corners on regular intervals, and you've got to kind of move around the grid so that, if there's one, they have 2 different health bars, blue and red, and if there's someone coming towards you that has like 4 blue health and only 1 red health, then you want to get to a red weapon, or a weapon that does red damage so that you can kill in 1 hit. If you get to a weapon that only does 1 blue damage and he's got 4 blue health points, then it's going to take you 4 attacks to kill him, and he's going to do 3 damage to you in that time, because it's, each time you attack him, he's going to fight back. And so it's kind of about maneuvering so that you kill them on a tile that does good damage against them, but also every time you kill one of them, it levels up the weapon that you're standing on, or gives it more XP. And they have like 4 levels that they can level up to, and it takes 4 kills per level, I think. So like you've got to kill 16 enemies on the same tile to level it up fully. And that's where the weapons get really interestingly different. Most of them, like to begin with, almost every tile is going to either do 1 red damage or 1 blue damage. But one of them might, there's like a club that does 1 red damage, and at level 2 it does 2 red damage, and then it does 2, 2, 2, like at level 3 or 4 or 5. And I think that's it. It just does 2 damage. And then there's a cleaver, which only does 1 red damage. And when you level up, it still only does 1 red damage, and then it still only does 1 red damage, and then finally it does like 3 red damage, which is great. And there's loads of things like that, which are like, some of them are good early on, and then not so good later on, and some of them are terrible early on, and take ages to level up, but then eventually they're great. And all you've got to do is just survive as long as possible. And after you've played like a couple of games, you get to design your own layouts for those grids as well. So you choose from any of, I think there must be about 20 different weapons. About half of them do blue damage and half of them do red damage. And they all have a unique property to them. And you just lay out your own grid, almost like tower defense, where you kind of, you're designing where you think enemies are mostly going to be fought. And you want the good stuff there. And some of the tiles were like, there's a blacksmith tool one, which doesn't do that much damage itself, but every time it levels up, all of the weapons touching it level up a little bit. And so if you fully level it up, that's enough to level up all the surrounding tiles by 1. Which is, I went for that originally, and like, I thought I'd get really excited about adjacency bonuses. So I was like, oh god, like if I, like, cause it's only a 4x4 grid, so it's a very small map. So there's 4 tiles in the middle, and then everything else is an edge tile, basically. And you spend almost all of your time in the middle, because enemies come in from the edge, and, it's much easier to consistently kill them somewhere in the middle, because you've got loads of ways of getting to those tiles. And the very corner tiles are the least used ones, because enemies actually, like, literally walk onto those, so it's very hard to kill an enemy while you're standing on them, because you'd have to kind of loop around them or something. And so I, like, positioned, like, blacksmith tiles, you want them to be near everything, but you don't really want them to be in the middle, because the middle's where you do most of your killing, and they're not very good themselves. Like, when you're standing on a blacksmith tile, you're only going to do 1 damage. I think at the very end it does 2 damage once it's fully leveled up. But I did that, and I kind of surrounded it with good stuff, and that was like, for a long time, my best run, where I used those to kind of level up some, there's demon swords. They're not called that, but I call them that. I can't remember the real name, but their rule is they start good and they get great. And they're the only thing in the game that's both good early on and good late game. And the only disadvantage is that they don't level up at all from killing normal enemies. The only way they ever get any better is if you kill a cursed enemy. And then I'm like, well, what's a cursed enemy? How do I do that? And then you read all the descriptions of the cards, and like, some of them, under some circumstances, can curse an enemy. And one of them will be like, a cursed enemy, but it costs you a health point to do it. Or a cursed enemy, or there's a 10% chance when an enemy steps on this tile, he might be cursed. And even those effects, like, those already sound like it's going to be a hassle to get an enemy cursed. But even those don't even happen unless you level that tile up to level 1. So you've got to kill 4 enemies on the thorns before the thorns even have a 10% chance of ever turning anyone cursed. And then only after they've been turned cursed can you then kill them with the demon sword, and then it levels up 1/4 of 1 level. But it's great, and it gets better, and when it's at max level, that does 4 damage, and that's especially significant because that's the most health anything can have, as far as I've seen, which means once you do that, if you can manage to get a demon sword to level 4, then it can kill anything in 1 hit. And then you've got this, like, death zone where, like, whatever comes at you, you just get to your demon sword, and then you can slay it immediately.
Is this not far too complicated?
I love it. That idea is so exciting to me. It's got so much depth and stuff to it. And then I get really pissed off with it because, and I should preface this by saying it's a lot like Tower Defense, and there was a game called Desktop Tower Defense where I became a little bit demented because it's so my kind of thing, and I just had this design for, I called it the Death Flower, of how I maximize all these adjacency bonuses and force every creep to walk around in this hideous, like, you want to inconvenience them, right? They're going from one place and they're going to go to an exit, and you want that route to be as long as possible so you have lots of time to shoot them. And I found this way of, like, making them so they had to go into the center of a maze, then come back out into the corner, and then go back into the center, then come back out into the corner like 4 times, so it looked like a flower. And the stuff in the middle and on the edges where they'd have to spend loads of time around those things, I could massively upgrade and make them the really good, like, area effect stuff. And it was, I swear, in theory, it's the perfect design. And then my friend Ben just thrashed my score every time with something that looks like garbage. It seemed to me to have no mathematical beauty.
This is your supervillain origin story. It's like when you prove, when Ben, like, doesn't wake up in his own bed one night and wakes up in a kind of featureless cube, and he realizes he's inside the Death Flower, forced to appreciate the beauty of your design as he leads a pack of survivors to, this is my spec script.
Are you, like, the way you're talking about it though, it made me think of, what's that game on phones where you have a lot of hex tiles and you can prod things
Hoplite?
from it
that's
reminds me of when you talked to me about Hoplite, and I ended up installing that on my phone, and I was like, this is such a Tom game. And I can see that you would probably get into almost like a holding pattern with it because you've mastered the systems, and I'm just like, oh, I died to that idiot thing again.
So with Imbroglio, there's two different things you're doing. You're laying out the map, and then you're playing on it. And when I die, I don't know who to blame. Is it past Tom who laid out this map, or is it present Tom who just moved in a certain way that got me killed? And I think it's tough because right now I'm doing really well, so I want to say it's just a brilliant game and I love it. But until I was doing well, I did like 5 or 6 runs where my board seemed perfect and I just got slaughtered. And it always feels so sudden and unfair because every time your score is just to pick up this purple star, and every time you pick it up, not only does the purple star move to a different location, but the whole level regenerates, which means it's only 4x4 again, but it's got barriers in different places. And sometimes there's literally just 2 walls and everything else is just open space, and that's super easy and you can get anywhere you like and it's great. Sometimes you pick up the star and the walls form in such a way that now you're standing at the end of a dead end and all of the enemies are coming down this long tunnel towards you and there's no way around them, and you're standing on a tile that only does blue damage, and the guy coming towards you has 4 blue health, and you're just fucked. I don't know how the hell you get out of that. I don't know what you can do. The only thing you can do is don't pick up the star and when there's any enemies on the board at all, but that's kind of impractical because at some point they spawn every couple of turns and there's just no way to sort that. So I felt like a load of my deaths were just like quirks of the way this roguelike works. You know, if someone comes out and they're 1 square away from you, you're going to take 1 damage from them because there's no way to attack them first. They always get the first hit in because you've got to move into their range.
What's
and there are
your
some
health? Is it that 4 max thing as well?
Yeah, you have 4 red and 4 blue. There's like one of the tiles is like a shield, and if you level that up to maximum, it's a shit weapon until you level it up to maximum, and then it gives you 1 extra max health point. So there's things that almost act like inventory items, like kind of there's amulets and rings and things that have special properties, but again, they only work once you've leveled them up to the max. So you've got to kill 16 things on that tile to get that benefit. And it's this real like devil's bargain where it's like, that benefit sounds so good. But then in practice, am I really going to kill 16 things on it? And the answer is yeah, if you put it in the middle of the map. But then that's prime weapon space, and you want the good weapons there and not the shit thing that doesn't actually work as a defense. But it's got the same thing. So A68 Hack has this great mechanic where the power-ups are embedded in the walls, and you had to kind of hack them to get them out. And in doing so, it would tell you up front, hacking this will spawn 6 enemies, or it spawn 3 enemies. And, that was how you got abilities. And then there's also just score ones. If you want this 7 points, you'll get 7 enemies. And so you're always betting on your own ability to deal with that. It was always like, if you think you're good, you can have the big points, but then you've got to deal with 7 enemies. And it was totally up to you how much challenge to take on. You could just try and get to the end and not worry about that. And this has a very similar thing where like, the best items for the late game are shit early on mostly, or they're super hard to level up, like the Demon Sword. But then there's one called the Dwindling Brazier, which does 4 damage just immediately, like just by default. That's a standard thing, which kills anything in the game in 1 hit. But every time you use it, it levels down instead of up. Okay. So it's dwindling. It gets, like, each time it levels up properly, like after 4 kills, it goes down by 1 damage and eventually ends up on 1 damage, which is bad, but not the worst. The worst is the Whetstone, which sounds so good. And once you level up to its maximum, once you level up fully,
wet like with an H?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Once you level up fully, it increases the damage of everything on its row by 1. So no matter what it is, even if it's something that, you know, its big trade-off is it doesn't have very good damage.
Yeah.
Like there's a vampiric spear that heals you when you kill with it, but it doesn't do much damage. But if you put it on the same row as a Whetstone, you could boost its damage up to like really good. But the Whetstone, once it's fully upgraded, does no damage, which is worse than 1 damage. And it's very much worse than 1 damage because more than once I have ended up on the Whetstone tile in a dead end and an enemy's attacking me. And it does not matter what that enemy is. It can be the most garbage enemy that you could easily kill with any other tile, but the Whetstone does no damage. So you're just going to die. You just have to stand there and take all the hits until you die.
Could you put another Whetstone at the other end? So
I don't know. I thought about that today. Yeah. Can I use a Whetstone to boost a Whetstone? And I thought, no, this way madness lies.
Oh, I'm glad that I got to the madness like really quickly just through not even playing the game.
But yeah, that's the experience of playing it, is just constantly thinking, oh, but what if I combine this with this? And then finding out, nope, you're fucked.
Maybe I'll stick to just trying to help you remotely.
Shall we do questions?
Yes.
I like
From-
questions.
I suppose we shall then.
It doesn't matter where they came from.
Who cares where they came from?
Core of the earth.
Yeah.
They came from
Questions.
questions. They came from questions. That's the title of my horror
What came
movie.
first, the questions or the questions?
That's that the first question.
No. No. No, it's just, it's a confusing circular experience if you don't know the reference already. Sorry, shall we?
Let's look over here at the questions. The almighty Snark from Discord writes, Dear CNC Podcast, computers... Sorry. I needed to sniff. Computers, he wrote. Computers have gotten significantly stronger in the past decade or so. I like stronger, I appreciate that he means more powerful, more faster, but I like they're
More
pretty buff.
buff.
Yeah.
Like a really hench motherboard.
My new PC has great abs. This has caused a rise in highly detailed flight simulator add-ons. PMDG is well known for the Flight Simulator X/Prepare 3D community, and DCS World is a host of developers for the Combat Flight Sim community. These aircraft/modules often feature manuals that are hundreds of pages long and go into great detail of the most minute systems. I absolutely love it. I think it's one of the selling points of these simulators. I very well realise this is not suited for everyone, but it left me wondering if any of you had ever played a game that required such an in-depth study of the supplied materials before becoming proficient. Most sincerely, the almighty Snark from Discord. In P.S. he writes, I'm so sorry for ever implying that PC Gamer had folded years ago. That statement haunts me to the very day. I am now fully aware that PCG is a thriving company.
Is he the reason that's like a running joke?
Yeah,
on
so
Discord?
there's the backstory for that.
I always wondered about that.
I think he was a newcomer to our Discord channel and asked, when I was in the channel, these are some of the people from PC Gamer. I thought that folded years ago. And I corrected him, shall I say. And now it's become a running joke that I think anything that specifically he is talking about folded years ago.
I wish I'd been there, because then I could have been like, yeah, it's an RPS fan magazine now.
I want, like, if the worst ever happens to PC Gamer, I want us to have the M. Night Shyamalan ending where it's like, PC Gamer folded years ago. We were all gainfully employed the entire time. Anyway, manuals, complicated video games and such.
No is the answer to this question. I haven't really got into a game that has that huge amount of external stuff. I'm trying to decide if I miss manuals. I don't miss the reliance on manuals. Like, it sucked that games didn't explain themselves and you had to read an external document to figure out how to play. But I did like the smell of them. They always smelt good.
I didn't read them even then. It was kind of like, I'd look once I got confused or found out that bashing my head against the problem wasn't going to fix it. But, I didn't, I never sort of opened, I'm really impatient, so I never opened the box of a thing and went, oh, a manual! I just shoved the disc in the drive or the cassette in the thing and just be like, right! I have no idea. I'm just gonna press buttons and see what happens. And then I'd find things out months and months later that would have made my life a lot easier if I had read it, because there was a command for actually doing a thing, and you'd be like, oh, well, this changes everything. And I'd have found it because I'd finally grown so frustrated with the thing. I'd looked to find the answer to a different question, or I think the only time I ever consulted the Simon the Sorcerer manual was to find the helpline number to just be like, what the fuck, to one of the problems. And they couldn't help me. It was like, well, why have you got a helpline number if you can't tell me how to progress in your stupid game? Why am I phoning this premium rate number? But yeah.
I'm the opposite of that. When games used to have manuals, I would open the box, carefully take out all the contents, read the manual cover to cover, put the manual back into the game box, seal it all up nicely, take the disc out, install it, and then play the game comfortable that I had been adequately prepared in the developer's expert guide.
I would always be like, on the bus on the way home or something, and so gripping open, really excited to play it, and I couldn't play it, so I was just like, the manual was like, look, all the stuff. I remember like doing that with like Jedi Knight and being super excited by that.
Some of them were, sorry.
Oh,
good,
no.
Some of them were good companions to the game, not just instructional, but some of them had little hints and tips. I really liked the classic Fallout manual, which had little notes alongside about things that you could do in the game, and it had a few little recipes at the end, which I tried once and were totally disgusting.
I really liked, so I wouldn't read the actual prescribed manuals for the games, but I would pick up the books with like the hints and those accompaniments. And like, even if it was stuff that I knew myself sort of backwards, it was just nice to have a thing that was like a physical sort of representation of the things that I already loved in the game. Like I had the Ocarina of Time one that told me where all the gold spider things, sculptures were, but I just liked having it because it was this thing that was like a thing that I could hold that was a representation of stuff that I knew, and that was quite cool. I'm the opposite when it comes to like DIY or baking or whatever. Like I'll properly read the thing all the way through and make sure that I've got all the stuff and that I've understood it all. But yeah, games, I'm just like, right, I'm going in.
I think I feel that way. I mean, this question was specifically about hyper complicated simulators and stuff. I think with that stuff, I've never had the patience to learn to do it properly because that feels like learning to actually fly a plane. Whereas I will jump in to have the experience of what it would be like if I tried to fly a plane, which is a catastrophe.
Yeah, I've kind of brute forced it.
Yeah.
Even like Microsoft Flight Simulator, which is far, far from the most complicated thing. I think. Do people talk about A10 Thunderbolts or the Frogfoot ones where, you go through your 600-page manual and then you're able to turn on the plane. But yeah, I would push buttons at random and try and talk to air traffic control, and it's like, I don't know, I'm taking off now. I hope the runway's clear.
I would always do the thing of learning the next button press I need. So like, look up the key binding for plane on. And then, okay, cool. And then try and wing everything else. And then crash into something. Usually not even take off because I'd forget about some kind of flap. There's always a flap.
You were playing a choose your own adventure.
Yeah, exactly.
the Cessna.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I'm bad at learning through just reading something. I'm far better when I'm talking to someone or someone's showing and I'm actually doing. And so that's why I struggle a lot with complicated board game manuals, because I'm just reading them and it's not making real sense until somebody's actually talking to me or I'm playing. Like I'll learn so much more from the first playthrough than I ever will actually going through the manual. It'll be when I've got a specific question that I want to know the answer to. And so when it comes to flight sims and things, because I've spoken to people about flight sims before. We did a piece on RPS about VATSIM, I think, and that was really, really interesting. But it was something where I knew that I would never get personally involved unless somebody else was willing to mentor, but on such a granular level, because like otherwise it would be like almost like taking an open university course or something, and that's just not how I learn.
Are there any VR flight sims? Loads of VR space sims, because I had my dad try the Vive recently, and I really liked it. But the question he kept asking was like, where are the flight sims? I want to play a flight sim. I just want to play like, Microsoft Flight Simulator or something, but in VR. Because then all those, like, those massive banks of switches they have on airplanes, you wouldn't need a separate key for all of them. You just reach out and touch them with the Vive controller.
That's true.
I think the flight sim enthusiasts have been building cockpits in their garages for like
amazing.
10 years already. They don't actually need...
Yeah, but now that seems almost unnecessary because like you can just make that environment as rich and complex as you like in VR. And
I think there's something about the actual tactility, though.
Yeah, I mean, flicking a real switch is definitely better, but
yeah,
it's one of the few things that's more expensive than a Vive.
Not a lot of them, but there they are. Matt writes, Dear Creighton Crowbar, thank you for your wonderful podcast. He says, I've never heard people speak critically about games before, and it's really helped me stay into PC gaming, which I think is genuine, but is the most amazing piece of sarcasm.
Oh, well done. I've never heard people talk about games before in a critical way.
Look at you, having opinions.
I'm taking it as genuine.
Okay. I think it is. He has two questions. First one, he says, last year, my wife and I had our first child. While I love our son dearly, he has made it harder to keep up with gaming. In particular, now I find I can't play the immersive games I used to enjoy because I have to be able to stop playing at a moment's notice to attend to my son. This has pushed me towards 4X games because being turn-based, there's no time pressure, so I can always leave it at any time, come back later. However, I'm getting a bit bored of that genre, and I wanted to know what recommendations you have for games I can leave at a moment's notice and get right back into without ruining the game experience. This information will come in handy for Graham too, although I think Graham is rapidly becoming an expert at this, I imagine.
Is that Graham's way of hiding the fact that the email was from Graham?
I guess so. If I was Graham, I would totally ask this question.
Invisible Ink sprung to mind as a, like, it's not a 4X game, but it's turn-based, and yeah, you can step away from it any time. It is, if you step away from it for a long time, like a few days, it's hard to remember what you were up to and like what your plan was with this situation you're in. Imbroglio, which is not yet out on PC, but probably will be, is good for that because the moment-to-moment challenges you're solving are just really simple to understand just by looking at the screen. Like, even if you totally forgot what you're doing, you can just see, oh, there's an enemy one pace away from me, I've got to do this. So, I mean, clearly turn-based games are going to be a pretty good avenue to go down.
If he's really bored of turn-based, I would suggest, I mean, New Doom is not a bad shout here, because obviously you can pause it at any time. It's a big single-player thing, and what you were doing is never going to be in much doubt.
Yep.
I was shotgunning the Redman.
I was thinking also something completely the opposite of Doom. Sorry, Tom.
Mood.
Which was Subnautica, and I know I've talked about that a little bit on the podcast before, but essentially it's an underwater survival game, although you can choose the level of survivaliness. So you can play it as kind of like...
I want to barely survive.
Total sandbox, or you can have it without the food and drink requirements, which is the one that I go for, and then, you know, there's like full-on survival. But it's a really nice, relaxing environment to be in and explore, and you find yourself setting yourself little goals, but you put down little way markers and you form bases and things gradually and explore the surroundings and things. And so if you had to go away, you'd just pause, and then you could either come back once you'd settled your kid, or, you know, come back a few days later and you'd still remember the broad thrusts of what you were doing. And, you know, even if you got distracted by something else or a new objective, it wouldn't matter because it's all so directed by you. And like, if you do find yourself getting confused, you can just lay down more of the beacons that you can label and just sort of put down, you know, like I've got one that's Pip's Volcano Lair, and there's like a particular island that I like going to for resources, and there's, you know...
I like to think you've named it Pip's Volcano Lair, whoops. Oh, good. Someone who has a volcano lair saying whoops.
It started as a mountain lair and then something went horrible.
There is one where it's inverted capital letters, and it's because when I use Fraps, I have it's assigned to the capital letters key, and so I was like, I typed in the thing, and I was like, oh, I'm too tired, I can't be bothered to retype that, so it's just this kind of ridiculous like marker A over there that I've completely forgotten the name of, but and then there's, you know, like kelp groves and things which are completely distinct from the other kelp groves that are like called the other kelp groves over there. And anyway, back to my original point, which was just that it's slow enough that you can it doesn't matter if you go away and forget what you're doing, because you can just sort of find your way back into part of it if it's grabbed you, I think.
Having just played Duskers, not much will happen until you do something. So it's basically turn-based in that regard. You can walk away and be safe in the knowledge you're not going to be eaten by aliens.
Does it save mid-mission if you quit?
I think
I haven't tested it this yet.
But yeah.
I think there's also we're allowed to talk about phone games now because you mentioned
I've opened the door.
But I play quite a few puzzle games on my phone, and they're things that I dip in and out of while I'm either waiting for a thing or on my, you know, like a if I'm on the tube between stops and then, do something else. But, and there's one called, on Android called Nonograms, which is basically Picross, but there's a lot of user generated stuff, and some of that's actually really good. And I just find it a nice thing that I can just chip away at odd intervals.
The Witness might be a good game for this. Very easily divisible.
It's actually a good thing to take a break from that and come back to it.
I think it depends, because I did that thing of playing it for a bit and then going away and then forgetting what I'd learned. But because you'd already done the puzzles, there was no way to sort of rebuild that level of knowledge, if you see what I mean. It hadn't entrenched quite, and then I went away, and then it was like, I have totally forgotten what I was doing.
There is a second half to Matt's email.
Oh.
Which goes on as follows. Secondly, I've enjoyed your discussions about Battlefield 1 and the issues with using World War I as a setting. The view of the war here in the US is similar to that in the UK. And he puts a link to something which we'll bother going into detail about. In your first discussion of the topic, you brought up how the decade of World War II games came from wanting to make Saving Private Ryan the game. That made me think about how that movie was so important because of the way it deglorified the war. When you compare it to previous World War II movies, for example, by John Wayne, or even historical films like Tora, 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 they tend towards the glorification and dehumanizing the war. Saving Private Ryan was different in that it showed death and fighting in a non-glorious fashion. First in the opening scene in Omaha Beach, and second when it showed when the whole company died, leaving a dozen families without sons, fathers and brothers, just to save one man. This made me wonder, why don't games attempt to humanize war in a similar way? The first-person perspective and interactive nature of games seem to be an ideal way to show the human side of war and what life was like for the average grunt in the trenches. Why have we not seen the real Saving Private Ryan of first-person war games? Thanks again for the great podcast. I always have a hard time waiting for the next installment. Matt.
I actually did have this experience with Medal of Honor Allied Assault Omaha Beach Landing, because I think it was just a demo actually I was playing, but it was a sort of terrible piece of game design from a level design perspective. Basically, that whole assault was a terrible level. Don't do that assault, because you're coming out of a boat into, famously in a very well entrenched position, and you're just getting mowed down. And the first 35 times I played it, I died within the first 10 seconds. It was just run out of the boat, immediately get mowed down, just completely slaughtered with no hope for doing anything. And initially I was just irritated. I was just like, what the fuck? This is a shitty game. I hate it. And then, that was after 10 times, and after 15 times, getting really annoyed. And then I sort of started to realize oh, this is kind of ramming home actually what a terrible, horrible place this was to be. To be any one of these people. I started to sort of split it in my mind into, instead of being one guy played hundreds of times, it felt more like I'd been everyone on this beach, and 98% of them were getting mown down and torn to shreds with no hope of doing anything. And the one guy who got through, eventually I got past it. It kind of just felt like, Pyrrhic victory, and just felt demoralizing. And I'd made it, but it was just fucking hell, this was an awful situation. So I don't know if that was their intent in designing it and making it super difficult, but it definitely drove home. There's something about living the experience. Obviously I didn't live it, but it's just being asked to overcome a challenge in an interactive way teaches you something that you never quite get from just people telling you, oh, it was really nasty and look, this many people died and only this many people survived.
It's just way more effective when it's systemic. Plenty of games have tried to do real horror of war, or we'll make at least a marketing ploy of experience war as it really is, or whatever. And even the games that are making an earnest attempt nowadays tend to do it through cutscenes and scripted sequences and stuff. And it's, the press F to pay respects problem from last year's COD, or even something like Spec Ops The Line, which is otherwise a good game, but whose sort of moralizing stuff doesn't really work because it relies on a series of sort of forced narrative tricks and stuff. Whereas, the game that has most effectively taught me that war is not really, glorious or fun or to be, coveted is Operation Flashpoint and the Arma games, because those games don't have an angle really either way. It's just that sometimes you're running across a field and then everything goes black. And it's because a man 3 miles away has fired a rifle at you, and that time it's hit you in the head, and that's it. And it's, there's nothing there's no showiness to those games. It's just a simulator of men in fields with with rifles. And it's the unshowiness of it that gets me, actually, because it is the drab reality of being killed with a gun, right? Like, it's not even Omaha Beach where, you know, and even in those older World War II FPSs is created partly for spectacle. You know, it's the massed assault on an impossible fortification. Whereas something like Arma, it's just like, well, man, sometimes, like, you know, I think about it, it's like, because in Arma you have that thing of like, it takes fucking forever to get anywhere, and you're doing real orienteering with a compass and map and stuff. And you'll play for like 2 hours of just running through a forest and then a field and then through a village and up a hill. And then you'll hear like a little crack in the distance and then zoop, and then you're dead. And it's one thing to be like, oh man, that's like, I'll play for 2 hours and that's how it ends. And then another go like, hang on, I lived for 28 years and that's how it ends. Like, that's the thing that kind of brought that home to me, I think. And I think it's just better when it's almost not the point, you know what I mean, of the game. Like, the point of Arma is to be like, let's get really into serious military simulation.
It would be really interesting if my whole Omaha Beach thing had just been the same, except every time I died, instead of just reloading the start of the game, it just kind of moved the camera to the next guy. Like, it would be all functionally the same, but you just had this sense of like, each person who died actually did die, and all those lives, like, every time you fail at this, you're costing
That'd be an interesting start to a World War II campaign where the main character is just whoever you successfully get through that first mission.
It was quite effective in one of the World War II games where you were one of the Russians assaulting an entrenched position, and you weren't given a rifle. It was just, your job is to pick up the rifle of the man in front of you when he dies.
Oh my god.
And yeah, that worked quite well, I think.
I wonder, like, because with the more overt stuff, like if you were to force people to play through a Saving Private Ryan type scenario, I think if they got it right, I wouldn't play it. If you see what I mean, like with a movie, there's enough of a remove that I can lose myself in it, feel empathy, feel horror, feel shock, but still stick with it. Only barely, but stick with it. Whereas if it was a game that was also adding the layer of you do this, or like have to be there, it would be like, I'm out, like I've reached my limit of this. Like, it basically, I think if a game successfully created that experience, like, I can feel empathy and feel like, you know, have a response and a moral response to those situations without needing to be in the thick of battle, I guess, and to feel how horrific it is. Like, you know, if you get it right, who would want to, in some ways? Like, maybe that's a simplistic approach, but like...
Yeah, I think that's why, as entertainment products, they purposefully shy away from that. And try just go for the war is fun angle, and yeah.
War is hella fun.
Or
Games.
yeah, like you were saying about changing it to the different person's viewpoint. It's like when you start off playing a game from someone's point of view, you kind of have a feeling that you're gonna survive. Like it takes out so much of the senselessness, because a game kind of can't sell itself to you as a 10-hour campaign and then take you out in 2 minutes and then just say, that's it, that's you, you know, proving a point. Like,
yeah, you play the charmed guy who survived D-Day and goes on to play a crucial role in Operation Market Garden or something. You don't play, like...
Yeah.
That'd be quite an interesting game to make, would be like, you know, experience World War II from the ground as a you know, heroic soldier landing on D-Day, and the game is 10 minutes long. But people would also complain a lot. Jamie writes, Dear Crate and Crowbar and Grill, to Tom F., in regards to Gunpoint, how far into development did you realise you were making a funny game? I imagine that the mechanics came first, and at some point you realised that endlessly punching a guard or flinging yourself through windows was quite silly, and you chose to embrace it. Like Portal, to my mind, the game mechanics came first, then the writing, and in my opinion, the Portal games are some of the most genuinely funny games I've played. There's another half to this, but do you want to answer that part first, Tom? Yeah. When did you realise that this was a joke?
It was like the
Have
first...
you realised?
What? You found it funny? How dare you? The first plan for it was you were a robot who would drop fridges on people. So I would say it was meant to be funny before it was ever meant to be serious. And then only, like, then I had him, like, a robot pretending to be a PI and, like, so wearing a trench coat and stuff. And then, like, only quite a while after that did I think, why is he still a robot? Why have I made him a robot? And then I realized he could just be a PI. And only after that did anything serious actually get added. And I don't know why, but I always want if there's going to be a story, then I always want the world it takes place in to be serious and things that are happening are very serious, but everyone's a little bit flippant about it. Not everyone has to be flippant, but the dialogue is kind of funny. And I don't know quite where I get it from, because like the stuff that I grew up with is like Douglas Adams, where I'm making a space game right now, so I think a lot about Douglas Adams stuff, and I realize I don't want to go in the direction that he did with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where the stuff that's happening is ridiculous. The whole, like, fiction is ridiculous. None of it really adds up. Like, there'll be whole races that exist just for a joke that he makes. And I don't know why, but I don't want to do that. I want the fiction to be serious, and then the individual actions that happen, like someone falling flat on their face and throwing themselves through the window or punching a guard 1,000,000 times, can be funny. But the rest of it has to sort of take place in a serious context. And in terms of, like, the best reference point for, like, the tone that I think I want is the movie Kiss Kiss Bang Bang with Robert Downey Jr. and Val Kilmer, where he's like an actor who gets embroiled in a bunch of crime stuff and he's just shit at it. But the stuff that's happening is super serious. Like, major people die and it's really, traumatic things are happening. But he's kind of glib about it, and the individual situations are funny.
Can I tell you an interesting story about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang that I heard literally today?
Yeah.
Because you mentioned it. And it's also one of my favourite films. So Shane Black, who's the writer of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and also wrote Lethal Weapon and Iron Man 3 and a whole bunch of other things, was on the Nerdist Writers Panel podcast, like an episode before the most recent one. And it's really, really fucking good. And about midway through it, he explains wanting in the late 90s, when I think he wasn't working as much as he had been, to write like a thing to prove that he was a real writer, like to do like a real serious, not a serious movie, but to do like a legit clever romantic comedy script, like classic Hollywood, all driven on relationships and dialogue, and wrote the thing like an LA set romantic comedy. And his scriptwriting mentor told him that there was some good stuff in it, but it just wasn't coming together, and had a huge like crisis of confidence in A Dark Knight of the Soul, and realized that the only way he could fix it was by adding a murder and turning it into a detective movie, and that became Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Oh wow!
So the relationship stuff came first, and then he sort of almost not bolted on, but like rebuilt that around a noir script, which is why it's out about an actor who's a complete fish out of water in a sort of Elroy-esque murder mystery. It's a fucking great film. Anyway, so that's totally relevant to video games, but I still said it. The other half of this question is, he goes on to say, there are other games that seem to set out to try and be funny and fail miserably at both being a good game and making you laugh. My question to everyone is, what is the funniest laugh out loud game you've played? What games have you played where you can see they were attempting comedy and you just didn't find it funny? Keep up the good work, everybody. Jamie.
I remember, there's probably just been, like, mechanical stuff that happens in games that makes me laugh more than anything else, but it's hard to remember, like, specifically which of those, not things that designers intended, but individual things. Actually, I remember I laughed a hell of a lot at a bug in an Oblivion DLC. Speaking of Bethesda DLC, they did Knights of the Nine, where you had like a bunch of like honorable knights following you around, which was dour and not very interesting. But one of them developed a bug where he would just basically move around in the T pose, where he moves his arms out, and he's called Thedret. And every time, like, he could still do normal actions and could still attack and do all the normal animations, but anytime he's idle, he would just stick both his arms out as wide as they would go. And ended up calling him Thedret the Exaggerator, because he looked like he was talking about, like, I caught a fish this big. But he also just had this look where every time he looked at me with his arms out like that, I think all NPCs look at you this way. They're just kind of like, they look at you like you're the weirdo. And because he's holding his arms out in this bizarre way, it just cracked me up every time.
So he's challenging you to like, what?
What the fuck is wrong with you?
The idea that he's like spelling out his own name and he's like got started on like T and he's waiting for your like response, your callback.
That's why he kept looking at me that way.
Yeah.
Where's the
Someone
H,
wa-
man? Don't let me hanging.
Someone once shouted, "Give me a tea," and the rest of that cheer has never been completed, much to his eternal.
Hope though.
Yeah.
He has hope.
In terms of, I think, I don't know, it's such an obvious answer, but, and the guys already mentioned it, but like the Portal series is probably the funniest script in a game. Like, if actually you're talking about funny writing for games, that is a brilliant script.
Yeah.
I don't think it ever made me laugh out loud though.
Really?
I don't
Really?
think many things do though. Like it's one of those things where I'm far more inclined to laugh if somebody else is there, if you see what I mean. Like I've laughed so much when I've been playing multiplayer games on like voice comms or something. But if it's just me in a room, like I'll smile or I'll feel like it's funny, but I very rarely crack up.
You've just reminded me that there is like a mechanical thing that made me laugh and all of us laugh when we did the Crate and Crowbar Spelunky playthrough and Tom Senior dropped a knife on your head.
That wasn't a scripting thing. That was a comic timing thing where I don't know what I'd said. I was like, just be careful with that. And I immediately dropped the knife completely into my brain.
Yeah, like you said, express some concern or something, and then Tom said something like, "Oh, don't worry, guys, I got a knife." And as he said that, he was standing close enough to an edge that he did the kind of like, "Whoa, I'm going to fall" animation, which causes you to drop what you're holding, and dropped a knife on you, and I think you only had 1 health or something, so it just killed you on the spot.
That's still one of the funniest things we've done. Like, and broke the mic.
Yeah, it's a hell of a noise.
In terms of games that explicitly set out to be funny and fail, how long a list do we want to produce?
Yeah. It's like, it's that weird thing of like watching a joke fall flat when it's just you and you know you're the audience and you know no one's watching you, but
Yeah.
it's just that awkward kind of. I mean, and I know that we've talked about it before, but I did get that a lot with Battleborn, and partly that is not my humour. It really just isn't, and that's not a problem per se, but it's just where I'm not the target audience. But other bits of it really just didn't work. And so it was kind of this weird, like, I'm going to bounce at you all the time. And I think that part of the problem was just like, there was no variation. So there was no sort of, cadence, I guess. Like it was just like it was on the same level the entire time. And I think, even if it had been far more for me, then I think I would have still just been like, I'm just tired now. Like, can we just dial it back a little bit?
It's like it never gets really silly or weird enough to actually be funny. Like, I think that's the problem. Like it's caught trying to be kind of cool at the same time as it's being funny. So it's never outright like. So it's ultimately about like kind of funny characters doing bands, but it's also kind of like serious, not serious, but like, also space conflict, also actual stakes and so on. Like, actually, Hitchhiker's Guide makes an interesting counterpoint because Hitchhiker's Guide, like, nothing is sacred in pursuit of the most ridiculous thing or making this sort of ridiculous situation. And Hitchhiker's Guide is funny because it has a humorless character at the center of a totally ridiculous thing. Whereas this is, everyone is Bants at the in a universe that is not Bants, really. And therefore everyone
In a world that is not Bants. These people are all Bants.
It's annoying.
I think more broadly as well, there's that sort of now trope in video games where the script seems to acknowledge that it's following particular stereotypes or it's going down a very particular, very annoying design pathway, but it never does anything different, and you're just like, you can't just say I've acknowledged it and that make it better and funny. Like,
Actually, that was my problem with Far Cry Blood Dragon, which I'd heard was really funny and great, and it's this like cyber kitsch expansion for Far Cry 3. But I never got past the tutorial because the tutorial is one long massive joke about how terrible tutorials are that commits all of the crimes it's mocking. And It's not a fucking joke to me. I'm literally livid when you commit those crimes. I'm furious.
But that's also just such a tired joke at this point. You're just like, oh my goodness, do something interesting.
Actually, so reminded myself, Saints Row 3 and Saints Row 4 both have amazing scripts. Like, those are legitimately funny games that are funny all the way through. And actually manage to be systemically funny even though they're really juvenile. Like, you know, I don't know, beating people up with a big dildo, or even though it's like...
in Saints Row 4 they have like glitch stuff going on, don't they, where people have, like, the enemies have glitched out, so they have like giant eyes and weird things, and those are quite cool.
There's also good visual gags, but also just the script is incredibly sharp. And like when that game dabbles in video game bollocks, I don't know, they make it work. I think it is possible to make the kind of self-referential thing.
Go full bollocks.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just like the complete commitment to the Keith David gag in that game, where it's like, because Keith David at that point had been Captain Anderson in Mass Effect for so long and had been like also the voice of, like, you know, kind of wise father figure ally in so many other contexts, that adding him to the game as Keith David, as Vice President Keith David, completely without, and then giving him a dark backstory, but as Keith David, is like, it shouldn't work, but it really does. And
I think it's joyous in its silliness as well. Like, I think the further it moved away from being a Me Too GTA, the more it just established, you know, like, we're just gonna go for it, you know, and it's fun.
It started with a gag about, like, you're defending waves of FBI agents or something, and someone says, like, when's the helicopter coming? They say, oh, I think 2 or 3 more waves. And that would suck if they were actually doing the sucky trope of, like, oh, it just lasts for fucking ever, but it's not. It's actually quite quick.
I think isn't there a bit quite close to the start that I'm so hazy on it, but it involves a rocket and Aerosmith.
Yeah.
So Don't Want to Miss a Thing, and
that's how you become president.
Yeah, and it was just that glorious over the topness that isn't just force feeding you jollity.
The fact that game is one incredibly extended Jane Austen gag is like the best. Have you finished?
No.
There's like, I
was playing it co-op with someone who then like had some time off school and then therefore like finished it. Because I
think the thing is, it's like it's really like the reason that script works is the same reason I think Portal script work is that it's really weirdly and idiosyncratic in some ways. Like, it's not like a bunch of jokes borrowed from Joss Whedon or borrowed from other places that have just sort of been reassembled. When it has a weird bit, it really commits to a weird bit that you can see the writer's room. You can see that someone in that room finds this funny. Like, finds opening Saints Row 4 with the same line as the start of Pride and Prejudice funny, and like how far they can push that. And like the running gag on the word puckish in that game, which is such a weird joke, weird word to pick. And obviously someone's decided that's what they were at the time. And Portal's really similar. Like, Portal's only like real game design joke is the press space to speak and then you jump, and it's like, why do you jump? And because it's the jump button. Like, and that they don't really go back to or dwell on. I suppose the fact that you're a mute psychopath is at the expense of Half-Life.
In a way, like the solution, I won't spoil it, but the solution to the sort of final thing in Portal 2 is a mechanical joke as well. It's like you've been taught a rule and the way you have to solve it is so ridiculous and absurd, but it's also the only thing you can do.
Yeah, it is a laugh out loud. They almost use you using ability as a punchline. Like, there's a shot at the end of Portal 2, which is essentially the punchline to a joke that's been building the entire time. I guess, Saints Row has something similar at the end of 4, but it's not quite as elegant because it is literally just a punchline. But yeah, that game's great. I need to play that again.
Don't play co-op with me.
Yeah.
Otherwise I'm never going to get very far.
It's almost worth it. It's almost worth it. It is. I think it's better as a solo experience though, because it's so much worth digging into. Like, all of the BioWare style sex scenes in that game are amazing. Like, because you can have sex with every single person on your ship. Like, anytime you want, and you don't even really do a loyalty quest, you just walk up to them, and the writing for it is so fucking good. And it's like any combination of sexuality and gender, whatever you want, everyone will just sleep with you, doesn't matter. Just like, everyone's just like, sure, like, why not? But they're all really funny and like very positive and lively, and it's the kind of thing you want to spend time with, going through all those conversations. What a good game. Shame are they all gone? Is Volition gone? Where are they?
Don't know.
I think that's a strange one, because I think with Portal, like, kind of aware that that's the Old Man Murray guys getting to write a game and make those jokes again, this time in a game. Whereas I don't know who the mystery writing heroes of Saints Row were.
Yeah.
I feel like I should. Scoo writes, Dear Kiss and Chase Bar, what's the most immature thing you've done in a multiplayer game?
I don't think any of them really cover me in glory. It's more just sort of feeling sad or getting a bit salty or something, I think. Like, that,
Yeah.
for me, feels kind of immature because it's really poor impulse control.
Just having tantrums and driving the wrong way around the Mario Kart track, trying to bump into people. Yeah, it's not a
Yeah, there are
positive.
points where I lose it with a multiplayer game I'm not good at and spend most of my time just messing with other people.
I remember when I played... Actually, God, maybe I've told this terrible story already on this podcast. It reflects badly on me. But when I played Duke Nukem 3D with my friend, like, back when I was the only gamer I knew, really, and, like, they weren't super into it, I would... Every time he killed me with a weapon... every time I killed him with a weapon... Whatever weapon he was using at the time, I'd switch to that, so that next time I killed him, he would know that, like, it wasn't just the weapon. It's just outright better.
I used to do a thing with games, but it wasn't inside the game exactly. It was, so when I was at university, you know how when you're friends at university and, like, you live in sort of houses near each other and then you'll go over and just, like, spend time in each other's, like, houses or rooms or whatever when other people are playing things and just sort of watch or, like, heckle from, like, their bed or something. Like, is that just me? Like, other people know that, right? But my friend Gareth used to, like, play horror games or whatever on his PC. And I'd be sat there just, like, reading or, like, doing some uni work or whatever. Like, I would very occasionally just reach out and, like, prod him lightly on the back of the neck or, like, on the shoulder. And he'll have forgotten that I was there and freak the fuck out. And, like, yeah, it was just really funny because, yeah, we used to, like, just go in each other's rooms and, like, watch each other play things or whatever. Or, like, you know, everyone would be watching a movie downstairs or whatever. But, yeah, like, just little jerk things like that were kind of hilarious to me, but I'd be really cross if somebody did it to me.
Speaking of, like, tantrums, like, obviously a rage quit is an immature thing in itself, and earlier today I was playing Imbroglio whilst playing in Duskers. Like, in the middle of Duskers game, I had Imbroglio on my phone, and it just every now and then, every time I think about it, more or less, I end up playing it, because I always, whatever, even if my thought is negative, it's always like, but actually, isn't there a way around this? Couldn't I have done this differently? And then I start playing it, and I had this great board design, and I just got killed after, like, 8 stars or something. My record is like 100 and something. And I was so furious, turned my phone off and, like, threw it on my bed, and then I also rage quit Duskers, which had done nothing wrong. I was just so annoyed at Imbroglio that I was just like, I'm not in the fucking mood for this, fuck off. That's pretty immature.
Oh, I can't really think of anything else, except, like, I do tend to just, like, if there's an option to do something, like, kind of like a micro-crime almost, like, I would
Are you talking about the free pairs, Pip?
Pip's small crimes go back a long time.
But, like, so I would have probably been arrested in an Enid Blyton universe for sending poison pen letters to all of my Animal Crossing villagers, but because they only grade you on, like, spelling and punctuation, they'd be like, I got your letter, it was amazing, and you'll have just said, I watch you while you're sleeping or something. And so I used to just send people a lot of, like, messages that were, like, really menacing, not real people, but, like, you know, and just sort of have that as a kind of immature kind of thing that would then come up because it was on their GameCube and other people shared the file, and so, like, if somebody else booted it up, then sometimes an animal would be like, look what Pip sent me, and I'd just be like, that's hilarious. And, like, an ex of mine tried to there was a frog character called Wart Jr., and we tried to wall him into his house with trees, because you can't pass trees, and so like we just sort of planted seeds and saplings and things all the way around his house and tried to get it so that it would just like wall him in, and then every time he was like, I'm thinking about leaving the town, it was like, no, you must stay, and then like talk him into staying, and then kind of continue the hate campaign. I feel really mean now.
Yeah, funny that.
Yeah, but I've kind of like kept up that tradition with more recent Animal Crossings. There's usually like a villager that I'll pick.
Have you
as
played Stardew Valley?
The target. I don't trust myself with Stardew Valley. But yeah, like there's always someone. I think I should have not been made mayor. Oh yeah, also Animal Crossing. I think I've maybe told this before, but so when you paid off your mortgage in the GameCube version, you got a statue of yourself, and if you were the first in your, because you could have up to 4 people playing on the save file, you'd get like a gold statue of yourself near the train station. And so even though I'd been playing it the least long, I paid off my mortgage first because I power gamed the shit out of Animal Crossing. And so, but then I sort of wasn't satisfied with that, so I paid off everybody else's mortgage, and they had like lesser materials for their statues. And then I planted all of these flowers around mine, and then like every time I fished an old boot or a tin can out of the sea or whatever, I would put it near somebody else's. So they all had like these horrible like landfill kind of monuments to themselves. And then I just had that. And then in the DS version you could also like create little tiles that you could place on the floor. And at the entrance to my town, it was just like kind of a 16 by 16, like whatever I could fill in, I'd put tiles down, and it just said "go away." So anybody who came in, it would just be like "welcome." So yeah, I should have stopped talking. Shit.
Chief Gaines writes, if you had to pick one celebrity guest for the pod, who would it be and why?
Angela Lansbury or David Suchet.
Why?
I like them. I want to hang out with them. I could ask her about what she thought about the Murder, She Wrote game. Maybe.
We should have Saints Row 4's writer.
Yeah.
Or
writers,
writer or whatever.
yeah. The Volition's writing team. You're welcome on this podcast anytime if you can come to Bath. The home of Jane Austen. So you can finally land that joke.
Since it's fantasy, I'd have Terry Pratchett, who I know was always into his games, but I don't think he ever really talked about that aspect of his fantasy stuff. I know he worked on an Oblivion mod randomly. I think he did some writing on a companion or something like that.
Oh, cool.
I remember, like, he was really into them. He played Oblivion with like 1 million mods installed and just obsessed with it, and he just wanted to like climb mountains and stuff. He wasn't interested in the plot.
And it'd be interesting to find out if that fed into his writing or, all the way around.
He was on the cover of the first PC Gamer.
Yep. PC Gamer 1.
It's a...
of which very few copies currently exist. Since you mentioned him, now my choice is Douglas Adams. Another dead hero.
Well, if we're going in that direction, then I'm going to take Prince. I don't know what we would talk about. It would just be like the greatest coup.
I'm sticking with the heroes of my favourite mysteries.
Okay.
If we bring Franz Ferdinand back, do we stop a war?
I think it might be a bit...
reenact
if you did
reenact
that,
the beginning of Command and Conquer with actual
What are the
Einstein.
parameters of this choice?
They might have taken this one too far already.
Unless you mean bringing back Franz Ferdinand, the
band.
Yeah. I mean the post-Franz Ferdinand war that happened after they got
resurrect
popular.
mid-noughties indie to the medium of internet video game podcast.
If they'd been chart-topped by a band called Gavrilo Princip, that would have been amazing. What?
That's a good joke.
That's some war bants right there.
As in war, as in the conflict, or war as in you?
I'm leaving it deliberately open.
Finally, Owen Hill, formerly of PC Gamer Podcast, now Mojang. Our friend Owen writes, if Donald Trump was, I'm going to say Overwatch, it's not what he's written, but Overwatch character, which Overwatch character would he be? Same question, but for Shia LaBeouf.
I feel like Shia LaBeouf would be the gorilla guy because he has like a just do it mode in which all he can do is leap and punch things.
That's true.
I was going to say Trump would be Winston the gorilla. 'Cause he's kind of loud and noisy and distracting and gets in your face while you're concentrating on him, his team is pushing the cart into the White House, I guess.
So the other, I mean,
Pushing the cat out
another
into the
potential
White
answer to this is May, whose only problem for being a Trump character is I think she's Chinese. But her thing is building a wall. So there's that. But however, that might have been my answer prior to the most recent Overwatch short film that came out on Sunday, which is called Hero and stars Soldier 76 as an all-American anti-hero who at one point in that video, I shit you not, actually beats a Mexican man to death with a piñata.
A flaming piñata.
A flaming piñata.
Smashes his skull in.
Which is about as close to a fucking Trump supporter bumper sticker as that game's going to get. So I think it's probably Soldier 76. Although in being kind of, middle of the road, kind of, no one's really sure what his role is. But he's in the game anyway. He's sort of the John Kasich of Overwatch. As for Shia LaBeouf,
Would Soldier 76 have made a good, apprentice-man? Because that's what
You're
Donald
fired.
Trump's thing
yeah.
was before. Obviously, also his other work. But, who can you think of that would host a version of reality TV show The Apprentice?
don't know. As for Shia LaBeouf, you could say it could be Diva. And not for the obvious reason, but because after the crumbling of his initial career, he sort of ejected as a smaller, lither, weirder version of himself.
Allowed his previous career to explode like a nuke.
Yeah, exactly. After a previous career defined by explosions, he ejected as a independently successful Korean idol.
I keep thinking of all the vines he's swinging from in the last Indiana Jones film, and thinking of Widowmaker.
See, I just think of both of the Sia music videos now.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's just the one Sia music video with Shia LaBeouf, isn't it?
I think
It's just the one where he's in a big cage.
Although I think I'm not entirely reliably remembering what is Shia LaBeouf and what is parody of Shia LaBeouf.
He's very close to all parodies of him.
It has reached that point, I think. I'm not sure.
He must have a sense of humour about himself, because he was in that adaptation of that Shia LaBeouf song that was made into a stage thing.
And then didn't he watch all of his films in a movie theatre in New York, and everyone was just kind of invited to come and watch him watch his own films?
Yeah.
And he just looked really sad and depressed.
Hasn't he also legit had a bunch of really problematic shit happen?
Yeah. Been through some shit.
Yeah, so I don't know.
There isn't an Overwatch character for Shia LaBeouf, really.
Sounds like Junkrat.
It's weird because I feel so shit for this being the answer to the question, but it's Overwatch is kind of upbeat and fun, and I don't associate that with either of them.
There is no character in Overwatch with the strange internal life of Shia LaBeouf, which is the worst thing you can say about its writing. Let's face it.
Yeah.
I guess that's the end of the podcast.
Did I make it too downbeat?
No, I mean, that's Shia LaBeouf's fault.
Okay.
It's an upbeat message. Nothing in Overwatch is as bad as Trump or Shia LaBeouf, so play Overwatch.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the marketing line.
If you'd like to send Shia LaBeouf a question, if you'd like to send us a question for a future podcast, then you can do so by emailing questions@crateandcrowbar.com. You can leave a question on the forum at crateandcrowbar.com/forum, which we do check honest. You can tweet us a question at If you would like to discuss the episode, you can do so on the forum, again, or on Discord, which there's a link to for on the website. Why not? Finally, you can follow us around as individuals. I'm at C Thurston, that's CTHURSTEN. Tom.
I'm at Pentadact, PENTADACT.
John.
I'm at John R. JOHN_ARR.
Pip.
At Philippa War, which is at PHILIPPAWARR. Yes.
Just your name.
What? No, there's a lot of letters.
And some of them are doubles.
Yeah, like if it was Pip, it would just be like PIP, done, fine, you know?
You should have got in there on the ground floor of Twitter and sorted that out.
Well, I used to have a different name and then I changed it to my actual name because business reasons and brand leverage.
You should do the Battle.net thing of having a 4-digit number after your name, no matter how unique your name is.
Catchy. Yeah. Anyway.
Thanks for listening, everybody. But with that in mind, let's be quiet now for a while